A billionaire walked into a cafe expecting to leave in 15 minutes. 20 minutes later, she was on her knees on a coffee-stained floor with a stranger's dying child in her arms, and the man across from her, a widower who had stopped believing in second chances, was watching the woman he just met refuse to let his son go. What happens next will break you, rebuild you, and remind you that love finds us when we are too tired to look for it. If this story reaches your heart tonight, hit that like button and tell me in the comments which city you are watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled. The bell above the door of Marlowe's cafe made the same tired sound it had been making for 31 years, a flat, papery jingle that nobody who worked there even noticed anymore. Nathan Brooks noticed. He noticed everything tonight, because noticing small, ordinary, harmless things was the only thing keeping him from getting up and walking out the back exit. He was sitting at the table by the window, the one his sister had picked, the one she had described in 3 different texts as cute but not weird cute, which was a sentence that meant absolutely nothing to him, but apparently meant a great deal to her. The table wobbled. Of course it wobbled. He pressed his thumb against the underside until it stopped, then let go, and it wobbled again. He almost laughed. It would have been a tired, ugly little laugh, so it was probably better that he didn't. Across from him, the chair was empty. He pulled out his phone. 7:14. She was 14 minutes late. That was fine. He was hoping she wouldn't come at all. Refill, sweetheart? The waitress had been by twice already. Her name tag said Donna. She was somewhere in her 60s, with dyed red hair pulled back into a clip that was losing the fight, and a voice that sounded like she gargled with gravel every morning and was proud of it. I'm okay, thank you. Suit yourself. She'll show. They always show. Eventually. How do you know it's a she? Donna gave him a look that was somewhere between pity and amusement. Honey, you've checked that door 6 times in the last 5 minutes. You've also got that haircut. That's a date haircut. I've been doing this since before you were born. I know a date haircut when I see one. It's not a date. Mm-hmm. My sister set it up. Then it's a date, and you don't want it to be. Worse. I'll bring you a water. She walked away before he could argue. Nathan dragged a hand down his face. He had not wanted a haircut. Eleanor had ambushed him at the barber on Saturday under the pretense of grabbing coffee nearby, which had turned out to be the same coffee shop he was currently sitting in. His sister was a person who used her own wedding as an excuse to set up other people's, and he had been on her list of unfinished business for almost 2 years. 2 years. He let the number sit there for a second, the way you let a sore tooth sit before you push your tongue against it. 2 years since Hannah. 2 years and 1 month, and he stopped himself. He had promised Eleanor he would not do that tonight. He had promised himself. He had also promised her that he would not bring up Caleb in the first 10 minutes, which was going to be a problem because Caleb was the only thing he genuinely had to talk about anymore. His son was 6. His son was sitting 2 tables away in a too big sweater, his small face buried in a graphic novel his aunt had given him for his birthday. His son was the reason Nathan was here at all. Dad? Nathan looked over. Caleb hadn't lifted his head from the book. Yeah, bud. Is she late? A little. How little? 15 minutes little. That's not little. That's not little, Nathan agreed. Caleb finally looked up. His eyes were Hannah's. Everyone said that. Nathan had stopped letting people say it out loud, but it was true, and it would always be true. And he had decided some time ago that this was something he could either learn to love or learn to live around. And learning to live around it had not been working. Aunt Ellie said she was nice. Aunt Ellie says a lot of things. She said she was pretty. Aunt Ellie also says she'll be on time and she's late to Christmas every year. Caleb thought about this with the gravity of someone running a country. Okay, he said. Then he went back to his book. Nathan watched him for a second longer than he meant to. The boy had ordered hot chocolate 20 minutes ago and had taken exactly 1 sip. There was a plate of fries between them that Caleb had picked it the way someone picks at fries when they are not really hungry but want their dad to think they are doing fine. He was not doing fine. None of them were. They were performing fine. Performing fine had become a kind of family hobby. The bell jingled. Nathan looked up. It wasn't her. It was a couple in matching rain jackets, even though it wasn't raining, and the woman was laughing at something the man had said, and Nathan looked away before the laughing could do anything to him. He checked his phone again. 7:19. He typed, "She's not coming." He deleted it. He typed, "If she's not here in 5 minutes, I'm leaving." He deleted that too. He typed, "Thanks for setting this up. I appreciate it." He stared at it. He sent it. The phone buzzed almost immediately. Ellie, "She's coming, I promise. Don't be a coward." Ellie, "Also, if you leave, I will tell Mom about the dent in her car." He almost smiled. Eleanor was the only person on earth who could threaten him and make him miss her at the same time. The bell jingled again. This time he didn't look up right away. He had decided, somewhere between the haircut and the fries, that he was not going to be the man who jumped to attention every time the door opened, like a dog waiting on a porch. He took a slow sip of his water. He counted to 3. Then he looked. And he understood immediately what his sister had not bothered to warn him about. The woman who walked into Marlowe's cafe did not belong in Marlowe's cafe. It wasn't the coat, though the coat was the kind of coat you noticed. Long, charcoal, cut in a way that did not happen by accident. It wasn't the shoes, which were quiet and expensive in the way only quiet, expensive things are. It was the way the room reorganized itself around her. The way the man at the counter glanced up and then quickly looked back down at his phone. The way Donna, who had been laughing with a regular, stopped mid-laugh. She was tall, not just standing tall, but a person whose posture had been trained out of her since she was a child. Dark hair pulled back, a face that in another life would have been on the cover of a magazine. In this life, Nathan thought, it probably had been. She did not smile when she walked in. She did not look around with that flustered, searching expression people had on blind dates. She walked like someone who had decided 10 miles back that she was going to get through whatever this was without bleeding on anybody. Her eyes found him in about a second and a half, and Nathan understood then that he had been an idiot to think this was going to be a normal night. She crossed to the table. "Nathan." "Yes." "Victoria." She did not offer her hand. She pulled out the chair, sat down, and set a small black clutch on the table with a soft, exact sound. "I'm sorry I'm late. There was a thing." "It's fine." "It's not fine, but thank you for saying so." She glanced at the menu, glanced away. Then she looked at him directly, and her eyes were the kind of eyes you read about in books you don't believe. Very dark, very tired, and lit from somewhere underneath in a way that suggested she had not slept properly in several years. "I should tell you," she said, "before we go any further, that I am only here because your sister saved my life 2 years ago." Nathan blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Your sister, Eleanor, the ER nurse. I was in a car accident on the crosstown in March of 2024. She was on shift. I was, by all accounts, supposed to die in that hallway. She did not allow it. I owe her my life. When she called me last week and asked if I would meet her brother for a single dinner, I said yes, because I owe her my life. So, here I am." She said all of this in a calm, almost bored voice, the way a person might explain why they came to a meeting they had no interest in. Then she folded her hands in front of her and waited. Nathan stared at her. "That's quite an opening. I thought it would save us time." "It's saving us something?" Honesty makes most things faster. Donna chose that moment to arrive. "What can I get for you, hun? Coffee? Black? No, on second thought, tea. Whatever's hottest." Victoria did not look at the menu. "I'm not staying long." Donna's eyebrows lifted by maybe a millimeter. "I'll bring you the chamomile. Looks like you could use it." "Thank you." Donna left. Victoria turned back to Nathan, and for the first time he saw the exhaustion in her face. Not the dramatic kind. The other kind. The kind that lives in the small muscles around the eyes and the corners of the mouth, and does not leave even when the person remembers to smile. "So," he said. "So, my sister told me almost nothing about you." "Your sister told me almost nothing about you either. I assume that was intentional on both ends." "Probably." "What did she say?" "She said you were—" He stopped. He had been about to say kind. He decided that would have been a strange thing to say. "She said you'd had a hard couple of years, that you didn't get out much." Victoria laughed. It was a short, surprised laugh, like she hadn't expected it from her own mouth. That is one way to describe it. What about you? What about me? Have you had a hard couple of years? Nathan glanced at Caleb. The boy was pretending very hard to read his book. He was also listening to every word. Yeah, Nathan said. You could say that. Victoria followed his look. Her expression did not change exactly, but something behind it moved. That's your son. Yes. You brought your son. On a blind date. Long story. Is it? Not really. The sitter canceled. My sister said you wouldn't mind. Your sister did not ask me if I would mind. Do you? She looked at Caleb for a long moment. Caleb, sensing he was being looked at, lifted his head from his book with the slow, careful expression of a boy who had been coached at length on first impressions. Hi, he said. Hello? Are you my dad's date? Caleb, Nathan said. What? You said she was. I said she might be. That's the same thing. Victoria's mouth did something then, not a smile, the early shape of one. I'm Victoria. What's your name? Caleb. How old are you, Caleb? 6 3/4. That's a good age. It's better than 5. I would imagine. Caleb considered her. He was a serious child, and he considered most things the way a small judge considers a defendant. You're very tall, he said finally. I get that a lot. Are you nice? Caleb, it's all right. Victoria turned back to him. Sometimes. Not always. I try to be. I'm not always good at it. Caleb nodded as if this was the most reasonable answer he had ever received. Then he went back to his book. Victoria looked at Nathan. He's direct. He's been like that since he was 3. It's a good quality. Most people lose it by 12. Were you direct at 12? At 12, I was a different person. Donna came back with the tea. She set it down without comment, then set down a second cup of water Nathan hadn't ordered, then set down a small plate of cookies in front of Caleb that he definitely hadn't ordered. On the house sugar, she said. You look like you need it. Caleb looked up. Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome, ma'am. Your dad raised you right. Donna walked off. Caleb peered at the cookies. There were 3. 2 looked like the standard sort. The third had what appeared to be a swirl of something orange on top. Dad, are these allergies? Nathan looked. Hang on, bud. He picked up the plate, turned it slightly. The 2 standard cookies were fine. The third had a label tucked under it. He pulled it free. Peanut butter swirl. Contains peanuts. His stomach did a thing. Donna, he called. His voice came out higher than he meant. Donna, sorry, can I just... What's wrong, hun? He's allergic. He's deathly allergic. Can you... Oh, Lord. Donna was already moving. Honey, I am so sorry. That's my fault. I grabbed off the wrong tray. Give me that. She reached for the plate. Nathan was already lifting it away. Caleb had not touched the third cookie. The other 2 were fine. It was fine. It was going to be fine. Then Caleb said, Dad, the first one tasted weird. The world tilted by about 4 degrees. What? The first cookie. It tasted weird, like the medicine. Nathan looked at the plate. Then he looked at his son. There were 2 cookies on the plate. There had been 3. Caleb, did you eat one of these already? While you were talking, just a little bit. It tasted weird, so I put it down. Buddy, look at me. My mouth feels itchy. Caleb, my tongue feels big. Nathan was on his feet. He was reaching for the inside pocket of his jacket where the EpiPen always was, where it had been for 2 years, where he had checked it that morning the way he checked it every morning, and his fingers closed around nothing. The pocket was empty. He had switched jackets. He had switched jackets because Eleanor had told him the navy one looked nicer, and the EpiPen was in the other jacket, in the closet, in the apartment, 10 minutes away. Hannah's bag, he said. He didn't even know who he was talking to. It's in the diaper bag. Wait, he's 6. There's no diaper bag. Nathan. He turned. Victoria was already standing. Her face had changed. The exhaustion was gone. Something else had stepped into its place, something older, more practiced, and very, very cold. You have an EpiPen at home. Yes, I left it. I changed jackets.
I bought one.
How far? 10 minutes? 8? Less? I don't know. Call 911 right now. Tell them anaphylaxis, 6-year-old, known peanut allergy, no epinephrine on site. Give them the address. Do it now. He didn't move. His hands were not working. Nathan. Her voice was quiet, but it landed like a slap. Now. He moved. Victoria turned to Caleb. The boy's face had changed in the last 40 seconds in a way that no parent should ever have to watch. There was a flush rising up his neck. His lower lip was puffing. His eyes were starting to look glassy and far away. She crouched down in front of him. The expensive coat dragged on the coffee-stained floor. She did not seem to notice. Caleb? Hi. My name is Victoria. I'm a friend of your Aunt Ellie's. Do you remember me? I need you to listen to me very carefully. Can you do that? Are you having trouble breathing? A little. On a scale of 1 to 10. What? 1 is normal, 10 is the worst. Where are you? He thought about it. Even now he thought about it. 4. Okay, that's good. 4 is okay. We have time. Donna. Donna was already there. Yes, ma'am. 2 things. First, do you have any antihistamines on the premises? Benadryl? Anything. In the back. The owner keeps a bottle in the office. Get it. Liquid if you have it. Run. Donna ran. Second, is there a pharmacy within 4 blocks? There's a CVS on Hoyt. That's 3 blocks. Send someone, anyone. They need to ask the pharmacist for epinephrine auto-injector, pediatric dose. Tell them it's an emergency. Tell them to call ahead if they can. I'll go. Marcus, watch the counter. Marcus. A young man behind the counter dropped what he was doing and stared. Marcus, you've got the counter. I'm running to CVS. 6-year-old anaphylaxis. Do not stop me. She was already out the door. The bell jingled, idiotically, behind her. Victoria turned back to Caleb. She had taken his hands. They were small in hers. She had also, Nathan saw, somehow gotten her phone out and set its screen up on the table next to her, where a timer was now running. He had not seen her start it. Caleb, look at me. Okay? I need you to do something hard, all right? I need you to keep talking to me. Even if you don't feel like it, even if it's stupid, just keep your voice going. Can you do that? Why? Because as long as you're talking, your throat is open, and I need your throat open. Oh. Tell me about your book. It's a graphic novel. What's it about? A boy who finds a... He stopped. He coughed. It was not a normal cough. It was a thin, scraping cough that came from a smaller, higher place than coughs were supposed to come from. A boy who finds a dragon in his... Keep going. In his backyard. And the dragon is little, like another cough. His voice was changing. There was a wet, narrow quality to it. Like a cat. Like a cat with wings. Like a cat with wings. That's a good dragon. Yeah. What's the boy's name? Otto. That's a strong name. I think my... Keep talking, Caleb. My throat hurts. I know it does. I know. Donna's coming with medicine. The medicine is going to taste bad. I need you to drink all of it, even if it tastes bad. Okay. Nathan was off the phone. The 911 operator was still in his ear, asking him things, asking him to confirm the address, and he was answering, but he was not listening to himself. He was watching Victoria Hale, Billionaire CEO, kneeling on the floor of a café holding his son's hands and asking about a dragon. Donna came back at a dead run. She had a brown bottle and a small plastic measuring cup. Her hands were shaking. Liquid, children's. I don't know how old it is. The date says, give it here. Victoria checked the date on the bottle. She did not flinch, but Nathan saw her jaw set. It's 2 months expired. It'll still work. Probably. She poured. She did not spill a drop. Her hands were the steadiest things in the room. Caleb, this is going to taste awful. I am very sorry. Open. He opened. She tipped it in. He swallowed. He made a face, a small, 6-year-old face that under any other circumstance would have made Nathan laugh and want to die at the same time. Good. So good. You are doing so well. Now I need you to tell me about Otto's dragon some more. It eats socks. It eats socks. That's funny, right? That is extremely funny. His breathing was getting worse. Nathan could hear it now from across the table. A high, thin wheeze on the inhale, like air being pulled through a coffee stirrer. How long? Nathan said. He was on his knees now, too. He had not decided to be. He just was. How long until? 12 to 15 minutes for the Benadryl to start helping, but it isn't going to be enough if his airway closes. We need the epinephrine. Donna's runner. How long has she been gone? 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Victoria was talking to herself mostly. 6 minutes round trip if she's fast, plus pharmacy. Call it 10. We have 10 minutes. Caleb. Stay with me. I'm tired. I know you are. I know. Open your eyes for me. He opened them. They were glassier than before. The flush had reached his face. His lips were starting to look strange around the edges. Nathan felt something terrible begin to move up from his stomach into his chest, and he understood, with a clarity that did not belong to him, that he was about to watch his son die in a café where the bell above the door made a flat, papery sound. No, he said. He didn't know who he was talking to. Nathan. Victoria's voice. Nathan, look at me. He looked. He is not going to die tonight. Do you hear me? He is not going to die tonight. But I need you here, not over there. Here. Okay? Talk to your son. Okay. Okay. Caleb? Caleb, hey. Hey, look at Dad. Hi, Dad. Hey, bud. Hey, you're doing so good. You're doing so good. You remember when you fell off the slide at the park? Yeah. You remember what I told you when you wouldn't stop crying? You said... He coughed again. The cough was getting smaller. That was worse. You said, it's only broken if it stays broken. That's right. That's right. You remembered. That's a dumb thing to tell a kid. Nathan let out a noise. It might have been a laugh. It might have been the other thing. Victoria's eyes flicked up at him just for a second, and there was something in them that he would think about for years afterward and never quite be able to name. Stay with me, kid, she said quietly. Stay with me. A sound from the door, the bell. Nathan looked up. It was the runner, the woman who had gone to CVS. And she was running, actually running, with a small white paper bag in her hand and a look on her face that suggested she had screamed at a pharmacist and would scream at him again if he had not given her what she needed. Got it, got it, got it, got it. Give it here. Victoria's hands were already moving. The bag tore open. The box came out. She didn't read the instructions. She had used one before. She did not say so. She did not need to. Caleb, honey, this is going to feel like a hard pinch on your leg. It is going to feel bad for 1 second, and then it is going to feel better. Can you be brave for 1 more second? Yes. Good boy. Through the jeans, right thigh, a hard, decisive press. A click. She held it. She counted. Nathan watched her lips move. 3, 2, 1. She pulled it free. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Caleb took a breath. A real one. A whole one. The kind of breath a person takes after they have been underwater for a long time. He started to cry. Nathan started to cry. He did not know he had been about to. He found out about it the same time everybody else did. Victoria did not cry. She sat back on her heels and exhaled through her nose, very slowly, the way a person exhales when they have not been allowing themselves to breathe either. She looked for one unguarded second like the most tired person Nathan had ever seen in his life. Then she looked at her phone. She tapped the screen. The timer stopped at 4 minutes and 38 seconds. The siren outside was getting closer. Donna was crying too. The woman who had run to CVS was leaning against the counter with her hand over her mouth. Marcus, the kid behind the counter, was just standing there with both hands on top of his head, like he was being arrested. Nathan pulled Caleb against his chest. He felt the boy's heart through the sweater. It was fast. It was scared. It was beating. "You did so good," he said. He kept saying it. "You did so good. You did so good." "Dad." "Yeah, bud. My leg hurts." "I know it does." "That lady is fast." "Yeah, she is, bud. Yeah, she is." The paramedics came through the door, 2 of them, calm, large, with a kind of preloaded competence that had not had to deploy yet. Victoria stood up. Her coat was ruined. There was Benadryl on the cuff and what looked like blood on one knee, although Nathan could not for the life of him figure out whose blood it was. She spoke to the paramedics in short, exact sentences. Anaphylaxis. Peanut. Known allergy. Estimated onset 8 minutes ago. Liquid diphenhydramine expired. Administered orally at. She checked her phone. 7:31. Epinephrine pediatric autoinjector. Administered intramuscular. Right vastus lateralis at 7:36. Patient is 6 years old. Patient is responsive. Patient's father is present. The lead paramedic, a heavy-set man with kind eyes and a graying beard, looked at her for a beat longer than he needed to. "You medical, ma'am. Used to be. You saved this kid's life." His father called 911. "The waitress found Benadryl. A stranger ran to CVS. I gave him the shot." "Ma'am, with respect, you saved this kid's life." She didn't answer. She turned away. She walked very steadily to the table where her clutch still sat next to a cold cup of chamomile tea, and she picked it up, and she stood there for a second with her hand resting flat on the wobbling tabletop, looking at nothing. Nathan watched her. Caleb was being lifted onto a gurney now, more as a precaution than anything else. The paramedic saying things in a low, friendly voice about going for a ride in the cool ambulance. Nathan was supposed to go with him. He had to go with him. He took 2 steps after the gurney and then stopped and turned back and looked at the woman in the ruined coat. "Victoria." She turned. Her face had gone back to what it had been when she walked in mostly, but not entirely. Something in it was open now that hadn't been open before, like a door that hadn't quite caught. "You should go," she said. "Go with your boy. Come with us." "What?" "Come with us. To the hospital, please." "Nathan, I'm not family." "I don't care." She looked at him for a long second. Her mouth did the thing again. Not a smile. "He needs his father, not a stranger." "He just spent 4 minutes holding your hand. He's not going to think you're a stranger." She didn't answer right away. Donna came up behind Nathan with his jacket. She pressed it into his hands without speaking. The runner from CVS, whose name turned out to be Sarah, was being hugged by Marcus the counter kid, and both of them were crying in that ugly, embarrassed way people cry when they have just done a brave thing they had no business being able to do. The paramedic at the door said, "Sir, we need to roll." "Victoria." "Go," she said. I'll be at the hospital." "You will?" "I'll be there." He went. The bell over the door jingled as the paramedics rolled the gurney out. Nathan went with them. He did not look back. He did not have to. He could feel her watching him through the window. Outside, the night had gotten cold the way nights in late autumn get cold when nobody is paying attention. The ambulance lights washed the wet street red and white and red and white. Nathan climbed in after his son. He took Caleb's hand. The boy's eyes were closed, but he was breathing, really breathing, his small chest rising and falling, and Nathan put his forehead against their joined hands and let himself finally fall apart a little. Through the back window of the ambulance, as the doors swung shut, he saw her. Victoria. Standing on the curb, her coat hanging open, her phone in her hand, dark now, the timer long since stopped. She was not crying. She was not anything, exactly. She was just standing there in the cold, watching the ambulance, and Nathan understood, looking at her, that whatever had just happened in that cafe had not only happened to him. He didn't know yet what had broken in her years before tonight. He didn't know about the man she had loved. He didn't know about the version of herself she had buried so deep she had stopped using its name. He didn't know about the boardrooms and the empty penthouse and the way she sometimes sat at her desk at 3 in the morning and stared at a framed photograph and did not allow herself to think the things she was thinking. He just knew that a woman who had walked into a cafe tonight as a stranger had refused to let his son go, and that, for the first time in 2 years and 1 month, when he closed his eyes, he did not see the face of his dead wife. He saw Victoria's hands, steady on his son's, counting down from 3. The ambulance pulled away from the curb. Marlowe's cafe fell behind them, its windows glowing yellow in the dark, its bell finally silent. Inside, Donna would later say, the chamomile tea on the table had still been warm when she went to clear it. The cup had not been touched. Nathan held Caleb's hand the whole way to the hospital. He did not let go once. Not when they took the boy's vitals, not when they hooked up the monitor, not when the doctor on call asked him questions he answered without hearing. He kept thinking, in a kind of stunned, repeating loop, of 2 things. The first was his son's voice, thin and small, saying it's only broken if it stays broken. The second was a woman he barely knew, on her knees on a coffee-stained floor, telling a stranger's child a story about a dragon that ate socks. Somewhere in the city behind him, Victoria Hale was getting into a car she had not asked to wait for her. The driver, who had been with her for 9 years and had never once seen her cry, glanced in the rear-view mirror and saw something he did not know how to ask about. He did not ask. He drove. The light at Hoyt and Fifth was red. When it turned green, neither of them moved for almost a full second. Then they did. The hospital waiting room had that smell. The one that was not quite anything. Not bleach, not coffee, not the cheap floor wax they used at 2 in the morning, but some flat in-between of all 3. Nathan had learned that smell 2 years ago and had hoped never to learn it again. He was sitting in a vinyl chair under a fluorescent light that buzzed every few seconds, and he was holding a paper cup of vending machine coffee that had gone cold half an hour ago because his hands kept forgetting it was there. Caleb was sleeping. Down the hall, behind a curtain, hooked to a monitor that beeped at a slow, ordinary rhythm. The doctor on call, a tired woman in her 50s who had introduced herself as Dr. Morin and then immediately forgotten to be tired because that was apparently her job, had told him the words he needed to hear. Stable, responding well, out of the woods. They wanted to keep him overnight. Standard protocol after an event like this. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. As if the phrase still meant something to him. He took a sip of the coffee. It was awful. He drank it anyway. The double doors at the end of the hallway pushed open, and a woman in a long, ruined coat walked through. The night nurse at the desk looked up, started to say something about visiting hours, then took a second look and decided not to say it. Victoria walked past her without acknowledging the fact that she had just been about to be stopped, and stopped about 4 feet in front of Nathan, and stood there. "You came," he said. "I said I would. People say a lot of things. I'm not most people." He didn't argue with that. He didn't have it in him. She looked at the empty chair next to him. She did not sit yet. There was something almost careful about the way she stood, like a person testing the ground in a place she had not been in a long time. He's okay. He's sleeping. They're keeping him overnight. Good. Yeah. Good. She said it twice. Nathan understood that the second one was for her. "Sit down, Victoria, please." She sat. The coat was a disaster up close. There was Benadryl crusted on one cuff. There was a smear of something darker across the left knee, and he realized with a small, awful start that it was from when she had knelt on the floor in the cafe, where someone had spilled coffee an hour earlier, and nobody had bothered to fully mop it. She was a person who paid a great deal of money for clothes, and she had spent the last hour walking around in clothes that were ruined, and she had not, as far as Nathan could tell, looked down at them once. "Did anybody offer you anything to drink?" he said. "I don't need anything." "That's not what I asked." She glanced at him. "No, Nathan. Nobody offered me anything to drink. There's a vending machine. I saw it. It's bad. The coffee is bad. The tea is worse. There's a hot chocolate that's actually all right if you don't think too hard about what's in it." "Are you offering me a hot chocolate?" "I'm trying to." A breath went out of her, not a laugh. The thing before a laugh that doesn't quite make it. "Sure," she said. "Hot chocolate." He got up. He felt the muscles in his legs not quite working the way they were supposed to, like he had run a long distance without noticing. He went to the machine. He punched the buttons. The plastic cup dropped. The brown liquid hissed in. He brought it back. He handed it to her. She took it with both hands the way Caleb did when he held something warm. "Thank you." "You're welcome." She held the cup. She did not drink from it for a long time. The two of them sat there in the buzzing fluorescent quiet, the kind of quiet that happens in hospitals at night when everyone who is going to die has already died, and everyone who is going to live is sleeping, and there is just this in-between hour where the building exhales. "Nathan." "Yeah. I want to apologize." He looked over. "For what?" "For what I said when I sat down, at the café, about only being there because of your sister. It was true. But it was a cruel thing to say to a man on a date, and you didn't deserve it. You were honest." "I was hiding." He looked at her. "Behind what?" She thought about it, the cup turned in her hands. "Behind the version of me that gives interviews. The one that doesn't have a face. It's the only one I let strangers meet anymore. Tonight, I didn't want to meet a stranger, so I sent her in. And then my kid bit a cookie. And then your kid bit a cookie." She took a sip of the hot chocolate. She made a small face that he suspected was involuntary. "You were right," she said. "It's bad. I told you. You did warn me." They sat for another minute. Nathan looked at his hands. He looked at the doorway down the hall behind which his son was sleeping. He looked at Victoria. "Where did you learn to do that?" he said. "Do what?" "Don't. You're asking a specific question. Ask it. You did everything right. You didn't think about it. You didn't look anything up. You didn't even raise your voice. You knew the dose by sight. You knew where to give the shot. You—" He stopped. "Are you a doctor?" "No." "You were going to be." She didn't answer right away. The coat shifted against the vinyl chair. "I was a paramedic," she said. "Before." "Before what?" "Before I wasn't." He waited. She did not look at him while she spoke. She looked at the cup in her hands. "I was 24. I had been on the trucks for a little under 2 years. It was the only thing I'd ever wanted to do. My father thought it was a phase. My mother thought it was a tantrum. They both thought I'd come back to the family company eventually, after I got it out of my system." "Did you?" "After everything happened, yes." "What happened?" A long pause. She turned the cup a half rotation. The light on the surface of the hot chocolate caught and slid. "There was a man," she said. "There always is. His name was Daniel. He was my partner on the truck for the last 14 months I worked. He was—" She stopped. Her jaw moved. "He was the most alive person I have ever met. He used to sing in the cab between calls, off-key, on purpose. He thought it was funny when I told him to stop, so he didn't stop. He had a brother in Albany and a dog named Goose, and a habit of buying coffee for the dispatcher even when she was rude to him." "You loved him?" "Yes." "He loved you?" "Yes." She drank from the cup. Her face did not change, but her throat moved. "There was a fire," she said. "An apartment fire in the East Village. Old building. The kind of building that should have been condemned 10 years before but wasn't, because somebody knew somebody who knew somebody. We were the first medical unit on scene. The fire department was already inside. Daniel and I were staged on the corner. Standard procedure." "What happened?" "A woman ran out of the building screaming that her son was still inside. 5th floor. The fire crew was working the 2nd and 3rd floors. They told her to wait. She didn't wait. She tried to go back in. Daniel stopped her. He held her back. He held her back. And then he looked at me, and he said, "I'll be right back." Her voice did not break. Nathan understood that it had broken so many times in private that there was nothing left for it to do in public. "He went in." "Yes." "Without gear." "Without gear." "Did he find the kid?" "Yes." "Did he get the kid out?" "Yes." She set the cup down on the small table next to her. Very precisely. The way she had set the Benadryl bottle on the cafe floor. He handed the boy out a window, to a fireman on a ladder. The boy lived. He's 24 years old now. He works in IT in Hoboken. He doesn't know my name. There's no reason he should. Daniel didn't come out. Daniel didn't come out. The fluorescent light buzzed. I was the first one on him when they brought him out. I was the medic. I was his medic. I worked him for 41 minutes. I worked him in the back of the truck on the way to Bellevue. I worked him in the bay. I was the one they had to pull off his chest. I was the one who told his brother. I was the one who picked up the dog. She paused. I never went back on the trucks. Nathan said nothing. He had learned over the last 2 years that when somebody told you a story like this, you did not say anything. You did not say I'm sorry, because I'm sorry was a thing people said when they had run out of better things to say. You did not say that must have been so hard, because anyone who had ever been through it knew exactly how hard it was, and hearing it from a stranger felt like an insult. You did not say, but you did everything you could, because they had already told themselves that 1,000 times, and it had not worked once. You sat. You let the story have the room. After the funeral, Victoria said, I went home, to the apartment we hadn't moved into yet. We were going to. We had the lease. I sat on the floor with the dog for 3 days. I forgot to eat. My sister came and got me. I went back to my father's company that month. I had not spoken to him in 2 years before that. He didn't say anything when I came in. He just gave me an office. And you stayed. I stayed. I was good at it. It turned out I was very good at it. I had a different head for it than my father did. And within 4 years, I was running it. And within 6, I'd taken it public. And within 7, I had... She gestured vaguely at the room. All of this. Whatever this is. The name on buildings, the interviews, the cold version. She was easier to be. She didn't sing in the cab. You never did emergency work again. No. Until tonight. She looked at her hands. They were trembling. Just a little. Just at the tips of the fingers. The way hands tremble when a body has finished being brave and is starting to remember it was scared. Until tonight. Nathan reached over without quite meaning to. He put his hand over hers on the armrest. He did not hold it. He just put his hand there. He was not sure what he was doing. He had not touched a woman's hand that wasn't his sister's or his mother's in over 2 years. She did not pull away. I haven't told that story to anybody in 6 years, she said. Why tonight? Because of your son. Because of my son, how? She looked up at him. Her eyes were dry. Her eyes had been dry the whole time. There was something about that, he thought, that was almost worse than crying. Because when I knelt down in front of him, Nathan, I almost couldn't do it. For about half a second, when I crouched down, I was not in that cafe. I was in the back of a truck on the FDR drive working on the only man I have ever loved, and I could not do anything for him. And I almost couldn't do anything for your son either. I almost froze. I want you to know that. I want you to know it wasn't clean. It looked clean. Nothing is ever clean. People think it is. From the outside, it always looks clean. From the inside, it's... She stopped. It's the loudest thing in the world. Yeah. She glanced at him. Yeah? I know what you mean. A pause. Tell me, she said. He had not expected to be asked. He had been on the other side of this conversation all night. He had built a small house in the other side of this conversation, and now somebody was politely opening the door and walking inside, and he found he did not know how to host. It's late, he said. I have nowhere to be. It's not a good story. They never are. Tell me anyway. He looked at the doorway down the hall, at the curtain behind which Caleb was asleep with a monitor on his finger. Her name was Hannah, he said. Your wife. Yeah, my wife. We met in college. She was a year behind me. She studied music. She played the cello, but she didn't play it the way kids who study the cello play it. She played it the way somebody plays it when they actually have something to say, and the cello is the only thing in the room willing to listen. I asked her out by sliding a note under her practice room door because I was 21 and I thought that was charming. Was it? She told me later that she almost threw it away. She thought it was a complaint from the next room over, about the noise. A small breath came out of Victoria, almost a laugh. We got married the summer after I graduated. Her parents thought it was too fast. My parents thought it was too fast. Eleanor thought it was just right, but Eleanor was 19 and thought everything romantic was just right. We had Caleb 3 years later. Hannah had a hard pregnancy. Bed rest for the last 2 months. She used to make me play her recordings of cello concertos because she said the baby liked them. I have no idea if that was true. She said it like it was true. What happened to her, Nathan? You sure you want to hear this? Yes. He breathed in. The fluorescent light buzzed. Aneurysm. She was 31. She was in the kitchen making coffee. Caleb was 4. I was in the shower. I heard him scream. I came running out with a towel around me, water everywhere, and she was on the floor by the fridge. And she was already gone, Victoria. They told me later it was that fast. They told me it didn't matter that I'd been in the shower. They told me it didn't matter what I'd done. There was nothing anybody could have done. And you still believe it was your fault? He looked at her. He did not answer. You still believe it was your fault? I was in the next room, he said. I was 8 feet away. I had headphones in. I was listening to a podcast about basketball. While my wife was dying 8 feet away, I was listening to a man with a stupid voice talk about the Knicks. Nathan. She tried to call out. Caleb told me. He was sitting at the table. She made a sound. He thought she was coughing. He kept eating his cereal. By the time he came to find me, she was on the floor. That is not your fault. You don't know that. I do, actually. You don't, Victoria. I do. Her voice was very quiet. I worked aneurysms. I worked them on the trucks. There is a window in some of them where there is nothing to do, but there is something to feel guilty about for the rest of your life. I'm telling you, as somebody who has watched a great number of people die in a great number of stupid little kitchens, you could have been holding her hand and singing to her, and it would not have mattered. You did not kill her, Nathan. You were 8 feet away. That's all. That's not all. That's never all. No, it isn't. But it is also not nothing. And the thing you are doing where you carry it like it is the whole thing, that is going to eat you. It has been eating you. I could see it the second I sat down at your table. He laughed. It was a tired, raw sound. You could see all that from across a table. I have spent 2 years getting very good at recognizing it. I see it in mirrors. He looked at her. She looked at him. The light buzzed. You have his eyes, you know, she said. What? Your son. He has your eyes. He has her eyes, actually. Everybody says so. He has your eyes, too. The shape. He looks like both of you. He looks like a kid who came from 2 people who loved each other. Nathan opened his mouth. He closed it. He didn't trust whatever was going to come out. A nurse appeared at the end of the hall, a young woman in pink scrubs. She came up softly. Mr. Brooks. He's awake. He's asking for you. Nathan stood. His knees popped. He'd forgotten he had a body. Is he? He's fine. He just wants his dad. Nathan looked at Victoria. She was already standing. She had picked up the cup of hot chocolate, which was still mostly full, and she was holding it the way somebody holds a thing they don't know what to do with. You should go, she said. Come with me. Nathan. He asked for you. He asked for his father. He asked for me, but he's going to ask for you in about 2 minutes. I know my kid. Come on. She hesitated. She actually hesitated. Victoria Hale, who had walked into rooms full of senators without hesitating, who had testified in front of subcommittees, who had taken her father's company public at 31 years old, hesitated in a hospital hallway about whether to walk 15 feet to see a 6-year-old. Okay, she said. She came. The room was small, dim, the kind of dim where they leave one light on under the cabinet so the parent can see the kid breathe. Caleb was propped up in a bed that was too big for him, in a hospital gown that was much too big for him, with a small plastic monitor clipped to the index finger of his right hand. There were 2 pillows behind his head, and a third one tucked under his arm because he had asked for it, which was a thing he did at home. His eyes opened when the door opened. Dad? Hey, bud. My leg hurts. I know. They're going to give you something for that. My throat doesn't hurt anymore. That's good. That's really good. Caleb's eyes moved past him. They landed on Victoria, in the doorway, still in the ruined coat, holding a cup of vending machine hot chocolate she had forgotten about. You came. You wanted me to come. Yeah. Then I came. Caleb thought about this for a second. Then he held up his left hand. It was a small hand, even for 6, and the IV tape on the back of it looked like an insult. I can't hold the book, he said. My hand has a tube. That's okay. Will you read it to me? Caleb, Nathan said. She has to go home, bud. It's really late. Yes, Victoria said. Nathan stopped. Yes, I will read it to you, she said. She came into the room. She took off the coat at last. She folded it once, twice, and laid it across the back of the recliner where Nathan was supposed to sleep. Underneath the coat, she was wearing a black blouse and gray trousers that had probably cost more than Nathan's mortgage. She rolled the sleeves of the blouse up to her elbows like a person who was getting ready to do work. She sat down on the edge of the bed. Caleb shifted to make room for her. The book was on the rolling table. She picked it up. Where were we? She said. The dragon was little. Right, like a cat with wings. Right. Otto found him in the backyard. Yeah. Okay. She opened the book. She started to read. Her voice was not a reading voice. It was a regular voice doing its best. She did not do silly voices for the characters. She did not overperform. She just read the words out loud, in order slowly enough for a 6-year-old to follow. And after about 2 pages, Nathan realized that Caleb was already mostly asleep. And after about 3 pages, he realized that Victoria knew it and was reading anyway. He watched her from the chair. He thought about a lot of things. He thought about his sister, who had set this up, who had picked the woman who used to be a paramedic, who had picked the woman who had been wheeled into her ER in March of 2 years ago, who had picked the woman because Eleanor was apparently the only person in their family with any sense at all. He thought about how he was going to yell at her in the morning and how she was going to know exactly what he meant by it. He thought about Hannah. He let himself think about her, for the first time in a long time, without flinching. He thought about her playing the cello in their first apartment, which was too small and too cold and had a window that didn't quite close, and about how the cello had filled the room and how he had sat on the floor and watched her, and how she had not played for him exactly, but had let him watch. He thought, she would have liked this woman, not in the way people meant it when they said the dead would have liked someone, in the actual way. Hannah, who had no patience for the polished version of anybody, who could spot a fake at 100 yards, who would have looked at Victoria Hale in her coat in the cafe and said, "What are you really doing here?" Victoria turned a page. The monitor beeped its slow, ordinary beep. After a while, when Caleb had been asleep for 10 minutes and his breathing had evened out into the soft, deep, miraculous rhythm of a child who was not dying, Victoria closed the book. She set it down on the rolling table, very precisely. She put her hand on Caleb's hand, the one without the tube, just for a second, and then she got up. She came over to the chair where Nathan was sitting. She did not sit. She stood, looking down at him, and her face was very tired and very still. I have to go, she said. Okay. I have a meeting at 7. Okay. It's a stupid meeting. I should not be going to it. I'm going to go to it anyway because that is what I do. Okay. Nathan. Yeah. I don't know what tonight was. I don't either. I don't know how to do... She gestured vaguely at the room, at the boy, at him, at herself. Any of this. I haven't done any of this in a long time. Neither have I. That's terrifying. Yeah, it is. A pause. Can I come back? She said. What? Can I come back? To the cafe. Not on a date, just the cafe. I liked the waitress. The tea was actually all right. He looked up at her. He saw, finally, the thing he had been sensing all night and not quite naming. There was a person inside the coat. Not the billionaire. Not the cold version. Not the face on the magazine. A tired, scared, decent person who had been carrying a great deal for a long time and who had, tonight, set some of it down without meaning to. Victoria. Yeah. You can come back to the cafe whenever you want. Okay? And it doesn't have to be a date. No. It doesn't have to be anything. All right. She picked up the coat off the back of the recliner. She put it on. She did not look at the stains. She walked to the door of the room. At the door she stopped, one hand on the frame, and she looked back at the bed, at the boy, at the man in the chair. Nathan. Yeah, he really does have your eyes. She left. Nathan sat in the chair in the dim room and listened to his son breathe. He listened until the breathing was the only sound in the room. He listened until the buzzing of the fluorescent light in the hallway became part of the breathing. He listened until his own breathing slowed to match it. He looked at the book on the rolling table. The dragon book. The one about the boy named Otto, who found a dragon the size of a cat in his backyard. Victoria had left it open on the page she had read to. She had folded down the corners so they would not lose their place. He thought, she folded down the corner. He thought, who does that for a kid they don't know? He thought, somebody who used to be a person before she became a name on a building. Outside the window of the hospital room, the sky was starting to do the thing it does before dawn, where it isn't dark anymore but isn't anything else yet either. He watched the color of it change for a while. He didn't sleep. He didn't try. He sat in the chair and held his son's small, intact, breathing hand. And somewhere across the city, a woman in a ruined coat was being driven home through empty streets, looking out the window at nothing, with a paper cup of cold hot chocolate sitting in the cup holder beside her that her driver had not yet asked her about. He would not ask. He had not asked anything in 9 years. He drove. The lights changed. The car went through them. And in the back seat, Victoria Hale closed her eyes for just a moment, just one moment, and let herself feel something she had not allowed herself to feel since the night a man named Daniel sang off-key in the cab of a truck. She did not put a name on the feeling. She just let it be there. For 1 block. For 2. For 3. By the time the car pulled up to the building where she lived, she had put the feeling back where she kept the other ones, and her face was the face the doorman knew, and she said good evening to him the way she always did, and she rode the elevator up to the 42nd floor alone. The apartment was dark. She did not turn on the lights. She stood in the entryway in the coat for a long time, listening to a silence she had been listening to for 6 years, and for the first time in those 6 years, the silence did not feel like the only thing in the room with her. There was something else in there now. A boy who had asked her to read. A man who had handed her a hot chocolate from a vending machine. A bell over a door that made a flat, papery sound. She took off the coat. She hung it on the hook by the door, stains and all. She did not look at it. She walked in her ruined trousers down the long hallway toward the bedroom, and she stopped halfway. By the window that looked out over the city she ran a small piece of, and she put her hand flat against the glass. The glass was cold. She left her hand there for a long time. Then she went to bed. She did not dream. For the first time in a very long time, she slept. She woke at 6:30 without an alarm. She had been waking at 6:30 without an alarm for so long that her body did not know the difference between sleeping and waiting. The bedroom was gray in the way mornings in late November are gray, half-committed, and Victoria lay there for a minute with her hands on top of the duvet and tried to remember the last time she had slept 7 hours straight. She could not. She got up, she made coffee. She made it the way she always made it, with the same machine and the same beans and the same temperature setting, and she stood at the marble island in her kitchen and drank a cup of it black and looked out at a skyline she had paid a great deal of money to look at. And she thought about a 6-year-old boy holding up his hand with an IV taped to the back of it. The 7 o'clock meeting was about a Singapore acquisition. She went to it. She sat at the head of the table in a different suit. She said the things she was supposed to say. She approved the things she was supposed to approve. Halfway through, her general counsel, a man named Philip, who had worked with her father before he worked with her, leaned over and said quietly, "You all right?" "I'm fine." "You look tired." "I am tired." "Anything I should know?" "No." He did not push. He never pushed. That was, in part, why he had outlasted everyone else. The meeting ended at 8:45. Her assistant, Miriam, met her in the hallway with a tablet and a list. "You have the regional VPs at 9:15, the DC call at 10:30, lunch with the Heritage Board. 3 o'clock with cancel the lunch." Miriam stopped. Miriam had worked for Victoria for 4 years and had never been asked to cancel a Heritage lunch. "I'm sorry?" "Cancel it. Say I have a conflict." What's the conflict? That's the conflict. Miriam wrote something down on the tablet with the careful neutrality of a person who has decided not to ask questions. And after the DC call, move the 3 o'clock to 4. I have somewhere to be at 2. Where? That's not your concern, thank you, Miriam. Victoria walked into her office and closed the door and stood at the window with her hands in the pockets of the new suit, and she looked down at a street 42 stories below her where the people were the size of commas, and she thought, what are you doing? She did not have an answer. At 2:10, she walked into Marlowe's café. The bell did its flat little jingle. Donna looked up from where she was pouring coffee for a man in a Mets cap. Donna's face did a great number of things in a small amount of space, and then she settled on something that was mostly a smile and a little bit a look. Well, she said, look what the cat dragged in. Hi, Donna. Hi yourself. Sit anywhere you want, sugar. We're slow. Victoria sat at the table by the window, the one she had sat at the night before. She had not meant to. Her body had walked there before her brain had finished deciding. The chair across from her was empty. She had not told Nathan she was coming. She had also not, she realized as she sat down, brought anything to do. She did not have a laptop with her. She had left her phone in the car. She had walked in here with nothing in her hands and nothing in her head and no plan beyond getting through the door. And now she was sitting at a wobbly table at 2 in the afternoon in a neighborhood cafe, staring at a chalkboard menu and feeling, for the first time in years, like a person who did not know what she was doing. Donna came over with a mug and a pot. Tea or coffee? Tea. Whatever's hottest. That's what you said last night. It's still my answer. Donna poured. How's the kid? He's home. He's okay. Thank the good Lord. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I haven't slept. I've been making everybody on staff read the labels on every cookie 3 times before they put them on a plate. Marcus is ready to quit. It wasn't your fault. It was 100% my fault. I grabbed off the wrong tray. I've been doing this for 31 years, and last night I grabbed off the wrong tray and almost killed a child. You didn't kill anybody, Donna. I came close. We all came close. Donna looked at her. Donna's eyes were red around the edges. In that specific way eyes are red when somebody has spent a portion of the night crying about a thing they cannot fix. You staying long, honey? I don't know. You waiting for somebody? I don't know that either. Donna nodded, like that was a reasonable answer. She left the pot on the table, which Victoria suspected was not standard procedure, and went back behind the counter. Victoria drank the tea. She watched the street. A bus went by. A woman went by with a dog that was much too big for her. The man in the Mets cap finished his coffee and left. The bell jingled. The cafe went quiet again. At 2:35, the bell jingled the other direction. Nathan came in. He had Caleb by the hand. The boy was wearing a coat that was a size too big and a knit cap pulled down to his eyebrows, and he was walking carefully, the way kids walk when they have been told they are special and fragile and don't entirely understand why. Nathan looked up. He saw her. He stopped just inside the door. Hi, Victoria said. Hi. I didn't mean to ambush you. You didn't ambush us. I didn't know if you were going to be here. It's Saturday. We're always here on Saturday. I didn't know that. You wouldn't. Caleb tugged on his father's hand. He had spotted her. His face did the cautious, considering thing it did, and then it did something else, something younger. He pulled his hand free and walked across the cafe, very seriously, and stopped 2 feet from her chair. You came back. I said I would. You said you might. Did I? Yeah. At the hospital. You said you might come back. Well, I did. He thought about this. He pulled off the knit cap. His hair was sticking up at the back where the pillow had been pressing on it for the last 14 hours. I'm allowed to have apple juice, he said, but not cookies. That sounds fair? It's not fair, but it's the rule. Most rules are like that. He climbed into the chair across from her without asking. He left his cap in his lap. Nathan came up behind him with the slow, careful expression of a man who had been planning to do this differently and had been overruled. Sorry. Don't be. He's been talking about you all morning. Has he? He woke me up at 6 to ask if you were going to be at the cafe today. What did you tell him? I told him I didn't know. That was honest. It's the only thing I know how to be at 6 a.m. She smiled. It was a small, real smile, and it surprised her. Nathan sat down. He did not take off his coat right away. He sat at the third chair, the one neither of them had been using, and he looked at her across the wobbly table, and Victoria saw that he had not slept either. There were shadows under his eyes that had not been there last night, or maybe they had, and she was only now allowed to see them. "How are you?" she said. "Tired." "Yeah. How are you?" "The same." Donna came over with the mug of apple juice she was apparently keeping for Caleb on standing reserve, and a fresh cup for Nathan, and a refill of hot water for the teapot, and then she winked at Victoria in a way that was not subtle and went away. Caleb drank his apple juice with both hands. He set the mug down. He looked at Victoria over the rim of it. His upper lip had a faint mustache of apple juice on it. "Did you go to work today?" "I did." "What do you do?" "I run a company." "What kind of company?" "That's a big question. Dad says I ask big questions." "He's right." "What kind of company?" She thought about how to answer. She thought about how she usually answered, which was the version with the pie charts and the press release noun phrases, and she thought about how that was the wrong version. "My family started a company a long time ago that builds things," she said. "Roads, bridges, hospitals, big buildings. I run that company now." "You build hospitals." "My company does. I don't actually pour the concrete." "Like the one I was at." "Probably not that exact one, but one's like it." Caleb considered this with the slow seriousness of a small judge. "My mom played the cello," he said. Victoria glanced at Nathan. Nathan had gone very still. "I know," she said. "Did my dad tell you?" "He did. She died when I was 4. "I know that too." "Sometimes I forget what she sounds like. Her voice, I mean. I remember the cello, but I forget her voice. Dad says that's normal, but I don't think it's normal. I think it's bad." "Caleb," Nathan said quietly, "it's okay, Dad." Victoria leaned forward a little. Her hands were on the table, not far from his. "Caleb?" "Yeah." "Can I tell you something I learned a long time ago?" "Okay." When somebody dies, your brain decides what it can hold. It can't hold everything. So it picks. It picks the things you needed most. You needed the cello more than you needed her voice, because the cello was how she said things to you when you were too little for words. So you kept that. That isn't bad. That's your brain being smart for you. He looked at her for a long time. He did not say that's stupid, which was a thing he sometimes said to grown-ups who told him something he didn't believe. He thought about it. Then he nodded, just once, the way a small judge dismisses a case. "Okay," he said. He drank more of his apple juice. Nathan exhaled through his nose. He did not say anything. He looked at Victoria the way a man looks at a person who has just done something on his behalf that he had not known how to do for himself. The afternoon got smaller around them. The light through the window shifted the way it shifts in late November, where the sun decides at 3:45 that it is done for the day. Donna brought over a plate of carrot sticks for Caleb on the house, with the strict instruction that they were not cookies. Caleb ate them in the careful way he ate everything now, examining each one before he put it in his mouth, and Nathan watched him without seeming to watch him, and Victoria watched Nathan watch him, and they all sat there for almost an hour without doing very much at all. When Caleb got up to go to the bathroom, escorted by Donna, who had appointed herself his personal security detail, Nathan turned to her. "Why are you here, Victoria?" She had been expecting the question. She did not have a good answer. "I don't know." "Try." I went to a meeting this morning about Singapore. I sat at the head of the table and I said the things I always say, and I approved the things I always approve, and the entire time I was thinking about your kid's hand." "His hand?" "The one with the tape on it. The IV tape. I kept seeing it, and I kept thinking, I haven't thought about anybody's hand in 6 years. Not like that. Not in a way that made me want to be somewhere else. And then the meeting ended, and I went into my office, and I stood at the window, and I thought, what is the point of standing at this window if nobody knows where I am?" She stopped. "That sounded better in my head," she said. "It sounded fine out loud." I canceled a lunch with Heritage to be here. What's Heritage? A board I sit on. It doesn't matter. I canceled a lunch I have not canceled in 3 years because I wanted to be in a cafe in a neighborhood I have never spent any time in to see a man whose son almost died next to me last night. Nathan, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. That's all you have. Yeah. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Tell me to leave. Tell me I'm being insane. Tell me you don't want a woman who hasn't been on a date in 6 years showing up at your cafe on a Saturday afternoon making your kid talk about his dead mother. He's the one who brought her up. He's 6. I should have changed the subject. You didn't. No. That's why I'm glad you're here. She looked at him. I have spent 2 years, he said, watching people change the subject when my son talks about his mother. Family members, teachers, the school counselor. They smile and they nod, and they steer him to a safer topic. Because a dead mom is a hard topic, and people who have never lost anybody think that protecting a kid from a hard topic is the same as helping him. It isn't. He needs to be allowed to say her name out loud. He needs people to say her name out loud back to him. You didn't change the subject. You sat there and you took it like it was a real thing he was telling you. That's the first time a grown-up who wasn't his aunt has done that in 2 years. That's a low bar. It's the bar. Nathan, I'm glad you're here, Victoria. That's the answer to your question. Caleb came back from the bathroom. He climbed back into his chair. He picked up where he had left off with the carrot sticks, as if nothing had happened in his absence, which was, Victoria thought, exactly true. She came back the next Saturday. She did not announce it. She did not text. She walked into Marlowe's at the same time, 2-ish, and she sat at the same table, and the bell did its same flat jingle, and Donna brought her tea without asking, and at 2:35 Nathan came in with Caleb, and the boy did not act surprised to see her, and Nathan did not act surprised either, and the only person who acted surprised was Marcus the counter kid, who was new enough to still believe in coincidences. She came back the Saturday after that, and the one after that. The first time she did not come on a Saturday, it was a Wednesday in early December, and there was a reason for it. Her car had been around the corner of Nathan's building for 40 minutes because Caleb had a school project that needed glitter glue, and the only craft store within walking distance was 3 blocks from the cafe. And Nathan had texted her, of all people, to ask if she happened to be free, and she had not been free, and she had cleared the afternoon anyway. She had stood in the craft store aisle in a coat that cost more than the entire inventory of the store and helped a 6-year-old pick out 4 different colors of glitter glue, including a gold one that he insisted was necessary for the parts that matter. Afterward, they sat at Marlowe's and watched Caleb sort his glitters by color on the table, and Nathan said very quietly, without looking at her, "Eleanor wants to meet you." "Your sister?" "Yes. She's met me. She wants to meet you again. Not as the woman she set up with her brother, as—" He paused. "Whatever you are." "What am I?" He looked at her. "I don't know yet. Tell her she can meet me, whenever she wants." She met Eleanor that Sunday at brunch, at a place Eleanor picked in a neighborhood Victoria had never been to. Eleanor turned out to be a smaller, sharper, faster version of her brother. The same jaw, the same dark eyes, but with about 40% more bite. She wore scrubs under her coat because she had come straight from a shift. She sat down across from Victoria and ordered black coffee and a Bloody Mary in the same sentence and looked at her for a long time. "You're prettier than the photo." "What photo?" "The one I showed Nathan, off your Wikipedia page." "You showed him my Wikipedia page." "Sweetheart, I'm a nurse, not a magician. I had to sell him on something." Victoria laughed in spite of herself. "You don't remember me," Eleanor said. "From the ER." "From the ER." "No, I'm sorry. I don't." "You wouldn't. You were unconscious for most of it. There was a lot of blood. Most of it wasn't yours, which is the only reason I am sitting across from you right now eating brunch." "Whose was it?" "The driver of the truck that hit you. I don't tell people that part. It feels macabre." "Did he live?" "He did." "Good." Eleanor watched her over the rim of her coffee. "You haven't asked me why I picked you. For your brother." "Yes." "I assumed it was a long shot." "It was. It was the longest shot I have ever taken. I am known in my family for taking long shots, Victoria. I once tried to set my cousin up with a woman she met at a funeral. The woman was the deceased's widow. It went badly. Why my brother, though? Because you came back. Victoria put her coffee down. You came back to the ER, Eleanor said. After you got out, about 6 weeks later, you came back with flowers and a check for the staff fund. The check was enormous. Embarrassing, actually. You had Philip write it. You did not give an interview about it. You did not put it in your bio. You did not have a press person leak it. You walked in with the flowers and you found the charge nurse and you said thank you and you left. I was there that day. You did not see me. I was on break in the back. That was almost 2 years ago. I have a long memory. That doesn't explain my brother. It explains everything about my brother. Nathan loves quietly. He grieves quietly. He breaks quietly. He needed a woman who did her good things quietly. Most of the women on his list of theoretical second chances were not quiet. They were loud in the way social workers and yoga teachers and life coaches are loud. They would have eaten him alive. You think I won't eat him alive. I think you've already had your big meal. Victoria looked at her for a long second. I like you, Eleanor. Most people do eventually. The eventually is the hard part. December turned into January. There was a Christmas Eve that nobody had planned. Victoria had been going to be alone. She had been alone every Christmas for 6 years, and she had built a kind of professional indifference to it, the way some people are professionally indifferent to their birthdays. Nathan had not asked. Caleb had asked. She had spent Christmas Eve in Nathan's apartment in a chair that was too small for her in front of a tree that was too big for the room, watching Caleb open a single present that Nathan had decided was the present she was allowed to give him. It was a hardcover edition of the Dragon book, the same one, with a bookplate inside that had the boy's name written in her handwriting because Nathan had told her, very seriously, that putting his name in pencil was the difference between a gift and a real gift. The boy had opened it and looked at his name and said, with the flat, enormous solemnity of a child, "Now it's mine." She had not cried. She had also not, she realized later, on the drive back to her own building, gone 12 hours without thinking about Daniel. That was a new thing. She did not know what to do with the new thing, so she put it where she put the other new things, which was a place inside her chest that had been empty for so long it had started to grow a kind of soft moss. The new things sank into the moss. Some of them stayed. Some of them grew roots. In late January, on a Tuesday afternoon, she sat in her office on the 42nd floor and looked at a quarterly report she could not bring herself to read, and she opened a drawer in her desk that had been locked for a long time. Inside the drawer was a paramedic's license, expired, 8 years old, her own face on it, 24 years old, in a navy uniform shirt with hair that had not yet been trained to behave. She looked at the face for a long time. She closed the drawer. She picked up the phone and called a number she had not called in 7 years. The number belonged to a man named Ramirez, who had been her supervisor on the trucks, who had been the one to take her aside 2 days after Daniel died and tell her she did not have to come back if she did not want to, and she had not wanted to. He was retired now. She knew because she had checked, idly, once, 2 years ago, the way you check on people you owe. The phone rang 4 times. "Hello, Mr. Ramirez." "Speaking. This is Victoria Hale." A pause, a long one. She heard a television in the background. It went off. "Victoria, I'm sorry to call you out of nowhere." "You're not calling out of nowhere. I have been waiting for this call for 7 years." "You have." "I have." She did not know what to say to that. "Mr. Ramirez." "Marco, we were partners." "Marco, I want to come back." "I figured. Not on the trucks. I can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But there are programs, emergency response programs, training for civilians. I want to do something. I want to put money behind something that puts a person like me on a corner, like the one I was on last." She stopped. "I want to make sure that the next person who has to do what I did last November is not a billionaire who hasn't worked a code in 6 years. I want a paramedic on every corner. I want them in cafes. I want them in schools. I want them everywhere." "That's a lot. It's what I want." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to design it. I want you to run it. I want you to call it whatever you want to call it. I want it to be his name on the door. A silence. Sweetheart, he said. It was the first time she had ever heard Marco Ramirez call anyone sweetheart in 20 years of knowing him. Yeah, he would be so glad. She did not cry. She did not cry. She did not cry. She put the phone down very carefully, and she put both of her hands flat on the desk, and she sat there for a long time, and somewhere in her chest, in the place where the moss had grown, something with roots took. That Saturday at Marlowe's, she told Nathan. She told him in pieces, over an hour, with Caleb between them coloring a worksheet, and Nathan listened without interrupting. And when she was done, he reached across the table and took her hand. He just took it. He did not make a speech about it. He did not say anything heroic. He took her hand in his, and he held it on the wobbling tabletop, and after a second Caleb looked up from his worksheet and saw their hands. And he did not say anything either, but his small mouth made a shape that Victoria would remember later, as the closest thing she had seen to a smile on him since the night the bell first jingled. Donna saw it from the counter. Donna said nothing. Donna would later say that she had taken one look at the three of them at that table and known, the way she knew about the weather, the way she knew when somebody was going to walk in needing a glass of water without ordering one, that they were going to be okay. She would also later say that she should have knocked on wood when she thought it, because she did not yet know about Thanksgiving. She did not yet know that on the last Thursday in November, Marlowe's was going to be packed shoulder to shoulder for the annual neighborhood meal Donna had been organizing since her husband died in 2003, and that a man named Walter, 78 years old, a retired postal worker who came to Marlowe's every single morning for 30 years and ordered the same coffee with the same 2 sugars, was going to choke on a piece of turkey in front of 50 people, and that Victoria Hale was going to be standing 6 feet away with a glass of wine in her hand when it happened. She did not know on this Saturday in January, with a man's hand on hers, that the test was still coming. She just knew that for the first time in a very long time, she had reached for something other than work, and a person had reached back. It was enough. It would have to be. Outside the cafe window, the snow that had been threatening all afternoon finally started to come down, in slow, careful pieces, the way snow comes down when nobody is in a hurry. Caleb noticed it first. He pressed his nose to the window and made a small fogging shape of his breath on the glass, and Nathan looked over at him, and Victoria looked at Nathan, and none of them said anything for a long time. The bell over the door stayed quiet. The cafe stayed warm. And somewhere very far away, in a part of her chest she had stopped checking on years ago, Victoria Hale felt something she had not felt since she was 24 years old, and a man named Daniel had sung off-key in the cab of a truck. She did not put a name on it. She just let it be there. The snow that started that Saturday in January came down for 2 days. It piled on the curb outside Marlowe's in soft, dirty mounds. And Donna spent a Monday morning shoveling it herself because Marcus had called in with a cold. And by Tuesday, the city had done its trick of turning white snow into gray slush and then into nothing at all. The weeks went by in that flat winter way where time stops being weeks and starts being just a feeling of having been somewhere for a while. The program got a name in February. Marco called her at 11 at night, which she told him was a fine time to call. Daniel Reyes Emergency Response Initiative, he said. That's the working title. It's too long. We'll fix it. Don't fix it. It's too long, Victoria. Don't fix it. He didn't fix it. By the end of February, they had office space in a borrowed building she owned in the Bronx, a board of 3 retired paramedics and 2 ER doctors, a curriculum draft, and a target of 300 trained civilian responders in the first year. Marco was running it. She was funding it. She had told him, the second time they met in person, that she did not want her name on anything. He had said, "Tough. Your money, my rules." She had laughed for the first time in his office, and he had stared at her like she had grown a second head, because Marco Ramirez had known her for years before Daniel died, and he had not heard her laugh in any of them. She started retraining in March. She did not tell anybody, not Nathan, not Eleanor, not Miriam. She kept it the same way she kept the drawer with the expired license. In a part of herself she did not let visitors into. Twice a week she drove herself, no driver, to a community college in Queens where a friend of Marco's was teaching a refresher course for lapsed EMTs. She sat in the back of a classroom in a sweatshirt and jeans. The other students were mostly in their 20s. They thought she was somebody's mother taking a class for fun. She did not correct them. The instructor, a woman named Kira, who had been a medic for 18 years, knew exactly who she was and treated her exactly like everybody else, which was the only reason Victoria came back the second week. The first time they ran a mock code, Victoria's hand shook for 40 seconds before she got them to stop. She did not let anybody see. She turned away. She breathed. She came back. She did the compressions correctly. Kira looked at her once, just once, and gave her the smallest nod a person can give, and Victoria thought, okay. By April, she was getting through the codes without her hand shaking. By April, she was also at Marlowe's 3 days a week instead of 1. The Saturday thing had not stayed a Saturday thing. There were Wednesdays. There were Friday nights when Nathan worked late and she picked Caleb up from his after-school program because his aunt was on shift, and Nathan trusted her in a way he had not announced and had not had to. Caleb called her by her name still. He had not called her anything else. But the way he said it had changed. Victoria had become a 2-syllable word with a small private weight on the second syllable that meant something only the three of them understood. She kissed Nathan for the first time on a Tuesday in early May. They were standing on the sidewalk outside the café. Caleb was inside with Donna. It was raining, not hard, just the kind of rain that fell on a person's coat and made them look up. She had been about to say goodnight. She had said it. He had said it back. And then neither of them had moved, and the rain had kept falling, and at some point she had stopped pretending she had a meeting in the morning, and he had stopped pretending he had to get the kid home, and she had taken a step closer to him under the awning, and he had put his hand on the side of her face, very lightly, like she was something that might startle, and she had not startled. It was a quiet kiss. It was not a kiss that anybody was going to write about. There was a car horn halfway through. Her nose was cold against his. When they pulled apart, he laughed, a small, surprised laugh, and she said, "What?" "Nothing." "What?" "You taste like that hot chocolate, the vending machine one, from the hospital." "That was 6 months ago." "I know." "You can't taste a thing somebody drank 6 months ago." "I can. I just did." She kissed him again because she did not have anything to say to that. Inside the cafe, Donna was pretending very hard not to be looking out the window. Caleb was not pretending. Caleb had his nose pressed to the glass. When his father came back inside, the boy did not say anything about the kiss. He did not have to. He had decided somewhere over the last 6 months that the grown-ups in his life were doing the right thing as long as they were doing it slowly, and he was going to let them. That was the spring. The summer was the program going from a draft to a real thing. The first cohort of trainees, 53 of them, ran their final scenarios on a Saturday in late August in a converted gymnasium in the Bronx. Victoria stood in the back. Marco stood next to her. He watched her watch them. "You're not crying," he said. "I noticed. You used to cry at training." "I used to cry at a lot of things." "You don't anymore." "I cry at other things now." "Such as?" "None of your business, Marco." He laughed. It was the laugh of a man who had not expected to be laughing this much at 63. The fall came. The first day of September was a Thursday. Caleb started second grade in a corduroy jacket Victoria had picked out, which Nathan had insisted was too much, and which Caleb had refused to take off even in the warm classroom because, he announced, it had pockets. Victoria had walked him to school that morning. Nathan was at a job site. She had taken the boy's hand at the corner without asking, and he had taken hers back without commenting, and they had crossed the street the way people who had been crossing streets together for a long time cross streets. She came back to Marlowe's after, for the coffee she had not had time for. The cafe was quiet. The morning rush was over. Donna was at the counter. There was a man sitting 2 tables away, alone, in a brown jacket. He had a newspaper and a coffee. Victoria registered him the way she registered everything now: height, build, complexion, age, whether he looked okay. He looked okay. He looked, in fact, like a man enjoying a slow morning in a cafe. That was Walter. She did not know it yet. She would know it later. The weeks went by. October came in with a hard wind. The leaves on the small ornamental tree outside the cafe turned and then dropped, and then were swept away by Marcus on a Tuesday afternoon with a broom that was too short for him. Victoria moved a meeting twice to be at Caleb's first school play. She sat in the third row in a black coat and watched him be the back half of a bear, and she clapped harder for the back half of a bear than she had ever clapped for an opera in her life. Afterward, they took him out for ice cream. He ordered chocolate. He got it on his nose. Nathan wiped it off with a napkin. Victoria took a picture of the two of them with the small, dignified phone she carried for personal use, and she looked at the picture for a long time later that night before she put the phone down. The Thanksgiving dinner at Marlowe's had been Donna's tradition for 22 years. She always told the story the same way. Her husband had died in October of 2003, 2 months before their 5th Thanksgiving. She had been 38 years old. She had decided, in a fit of grief and stubbornness, that she was not going to spend that Thanksgiving alone, and she was not going to make anybody else spend it alone either. She had put a sign in the window of Marlowe's. Free Thanksgiving dinner. Anybody. No questions. The first year, 11 people had come. The next year, 26. By the 5th year, she had needed help. By now, in the year she would not have to count, she was serving 60 people in 2 seatings, with 7 volunteers and 3 folding tables added to the regular ones, and the line started outside an hour before they opened. That was the day Walter choked. The morning of Thanksgiving, Victoria had been at the café at 9. She had come to help. She had been helping for the last 2 weeks, in small ways, carrying things, lifting things, paying for things Donna did not know she was paying for. Marcus was there. So was a girl named Priya who worked weekends. So was Eleanor, who had taken the day off her ER shift and was running point on the food, because Donna, she said, was a saint, but could not make stuffing to save her life. Nathan came at noon with Caleb. Caleb was wearing a sweater Victoria had given him with a moose on it. He was annoyed about the moose, but secretly proud of the moose. He had spent the morning making place cards. He had made one for everybody, including people who were not coming, and he was going to insist on putting them all out. The first seating started at 1. The cafe filled up the way it always filled up, in a slow swell of coats and steam and the smell of gravy. There were old people from the building above the laundromat. There were 2 families from the apartments across the street. There was a young couple who had moved in 3 months ago and didn't know anybody on the block yet. There was Walter, who was the first person through the door. The way Walter had been the first person through the door of Marlowe's almost every morning for 30 years. He sat at his usual table, the one by the window. He was wearing a tie. Walter had worn a tie to Thanksgiving every year for 22 years, since the second year Donna had done it, because he had announced, if a lady is doing this kind of work for free, a man should put on a tie. Donna had hugged him hello at the door. She had hugged him hello at the door every year. She had told him later, much later, that there had been nothing different about that morning. He had ordered his coffee. He had asked about her sister. He had told her, the way he told her every year, that her cornbread was better than his late wife's, which she knew was a lie, and which she let him tell her anyway. The first plates went out at 1:15. Victoria was helping carry them. She was wearing jeans and a flannel and had her hair in a low braid and looked, in the words of Donna later, like she had not looked since she was 23. She carried 2 plates at a time. She knew which tables were which. She and Eleanor had worked out a rhythm. She set a plate down in front of Walter. She had not met Walter before that day. He had looked up at her and said, "You're new." Sort of. "You're Donna's new girl." "I'm helping for the day." "You got a good face. I'm Walter." "Victoria." "Pleasure, Victoria." That had been the whole exchange. 40 seconds. She had moved to the next table. She had not thought about it again. It happened at 1:38. She had her back to him. She was at the counter picking up 2 more plates. The cafe was at full volume. 60 people talking, plates clinking. Somebody had put on the playlist Donna only used on Thanksgiving, which was mostly old jazz and mostly too quiet to actually hear over the noise. Caleb was at the table by the door with Eleanor, putting place cards out for the second seating, which was a job he had given himself. The sound, when it came, was wrong. It was not a scream. It was not a shout. It was the sound of a chair being scraped back hard, and then a different sound, a smaller one, a person trying to make a sound and not being able to. Victoria's head came up before her brain told it to. Years on the trucks, years. The body remembers what the head forgets. She turned. A woman 2 tables away from Walter, his daughter Marta, who had come up from Florida and was the reason he had worn the second-best tie instead of the third-best tie, was standing. Her hand was over her mouth. Her chair was on the floor. Walter was in his own chair, half rising, both hands at his throat. His face was the wrong color. Not red yet. Worse than red. White around the edges with a panicked rim of red around his eyes. He was not making any noise at all. Universal sign for choking. Both hands. Throat. Victoria's body did 3 things at once. The first thing it did was move. 2 steps from the counter toward the table. Plates still in her hands. She set them down on a table she passed without breaking stride. The second thing it did was remember. She had been 24 years old. A truck. The FDR drive. A man in her arms whose chest had stopped doing what chests did. The smell of smoke in his hair. The way his hand had been heavier than it was supposed to be. The way she had counted the compressions out loud. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And the way her own voice had sounded thinner with each number, like a thing being stretched. For half a second, the third step did not happen. The third step was supposed to be getting to Walter. She had taken 2. She did not take a third. The cafe was very quiet now. The Thanksgiving playlist was still going. Somebody in the kitchen dropped a pan. Walter was still in his chair. Marta was saying his name. Donna was coming around the counter. Eleanor was on her feet at the door table, her hands flat on the table, looking right at Victoria. Nathan was looking at her too. He had been at the back wall, refilling a coffee carafe. He had heard the chair scrape, and he had turned. He saw her. He saw the third step not happening. He saw with a clarity he would not be able to describe later, the exact location in his life where the woman he loved was about to lose. Right there, at the front of the cafe, with a man dying in a chair 6 feet away from her. He did not run. Running would have made it worse. He walked, fast. He came up behind her. He did not touch her. He did not grab her arm. He stopped about a foot behind her right shoulder, close enough that she could feel him, not close enough that she could pretend he was not there. Vic. She did not turn. Vic. Hey. Her eyes were on Walter. Her hands were down at her sides. Her hands were shaking. Not the small shake. The big one. The one she had not let happen at Caleb's table in 11 months. I can't, she said. She said it very quietly. Only Nathan heard her. You can. Nathan. You can. Look at me. She did not look. Victoria, look at me. I need you to look at me, right now. She turned her head, maybe 2 inches. She did not look at him directly. She looked at his shoulder. You are not in a truck, he said. She said nothing. You are in a cafe. You are in our cafe. You are not 24. You are 31 years old and you have run a code 3 times in 3 weeks in a gym in the Bronx without your hands shaking once. You ran one on Tuesday. You ran one on Thursday. You ran 2 on Saturday. I asked. Marco told me. He told me you were good. He said you were better than half his instructors. Do you hear me? Vic, do you hear me? She made a sound, not a word. He is going to die in that chair if you do not get to him. Marta is going to watch her father die. Donna is going to watch her oldest customer die in a chair in her cafe on Thanksgiving. Caleb is sitting 12 feet away. He is going to see it. Look at me. She looked at him. You are not alone in this. You hear me. You are not in that ambulance. You are not on that highway. You are here. I am here. Eleanor is here. Marta is right there. If he dies, he does not die alone, and you do not stand here alone. But he is not going to die, because you are going to go over there, and you are going to do what you know how to do. Right now, Vic. Right now. 2 seconds. 3. She moved. What happened in the next minute, Donna would later say, was the thing she would tell her grandchildren about. She had grandchildren. 2 of them. She would tell them this story for the rest of her life, and they would never quite believe her, because the way she told it would always be too clean. And the truth was that nothing about it was clean. Eleanor would say it took 85 seconds. Eleanor had a nurse's eye for time. Marta, who could only ever remember it in pieces, would say it had been forever and it had been nothing, both at once. Victoria got behind Walter. She did not say, I'm a paramedic. She did not say anything. She put her arms around his ribcage from behind. Her hands found the spot above his navel, the way her hands had been finding that spot since she was 19 years old. Her right fist made a knot. Her left hand wrapped over it. Walter was a big man. He had been bigger when he was younger. Now he was 78, and his ribs were not as forgiving as they once had been. She did not have a lot of time to be polite about it. She pulled in and up. Hard. Once. Nothing. Again. Harder. Nothing. "Come on," she said, very quietly. To him. To herself. "Come on, Walter." The third time, something flew out of his mouth. It was a piece of turkey the size of a quarter. It hit the floor about 4 feet away. Marta would later refuse to look at the photographs the local paper somehow ended up with. The piece of turkey was in 2 of them. Walter took a breath. A real one. A whole one. It was the sound a drowning man makes when he comes up. The sound was so loud that the entire cafe heard it. The Thanksgiving playlist was still playing. Somebody, Marcus probably, had the presence of mind to turn it off. Walter sat down hard in his chair. He coughed. He coughed again. He put his hand over his eyes and he sat there with his shoulders going up and down. And his daughter Marta was on her knees next to him, and she had her hand on his arm. And she was crying in the way grown daughters cry when they have just almost watched a father die. Victoria did not let go right away. Her arms were still around his ribcage. She stood behind him with her forehead pressed against the back of his shoulder, and for a moment, just a moment, she did not look like a paramedic. She looked like a person who had just done a hard thing and was trying to remember how her body worked. Then she let go. She straightened up. She put one hand on Walter's shoulder, just one, lightly. "You all right, Walter?" He nodded. He could not talk yet. "Don't try to talk. Drink some water. Slow. Marta, get him water." Marta moved. "Donna, call 911. I want him cleared by a hospital. He's 78. He just took a whack to the diaphragm. I want him on a monitor." Donna moved. "Eleanor?" "Right here. Watch his color. Tell me if it changes." "Got it." The cafe was still silent. 60 people, motionless, watching her. She did not look at them. She looked at Walter. She kept her hand on his shoulder until the paramedics came in 11 minutes, and she did not move at once. When they took Walter out on the stretcher, sitting up, talking, alive, the cafe broke into something that wasn't quite applause and wasn't quite anything else. A kind of collective exhale that turned into a noise. Marta hugged Victoria so hard she lifted her 2 inches off the floor. Marta was a small woman. It should not have been physically possible. Marta did it anyway. Victoria did not cry then. She held it together while Walter went out the door. She held it together while she answered the paramedics' questions, the same flat exact sentences she had used 11 months ago for her own son in a different decade. She held it together while Donna hugged her, and while Eleanor hugged her, and while Marcus the counter kid said, with absolutely no irony, "Ma'am, that was the coolest thing I have ever seen." She held it together until she got outside. She made it about 15 feet down the sidewalk, past the street light, past the parked van Marcus had been threatening to ticket. She stopped at the corner. She put her hand against the cold brick wall of the building next door. She did not know what was about to happen, and then it was happening. Her shoulders were shaking, hard, and there were no tears yet. Just a kind of dry, gasping sound coming out of her chest in pieces. The sound of something that had been held in too tight for too long finally giving way. Then the tears came. They came in the wrong way, all at once, without permission, and her face was wet and her hair was in her mouth and her hand was scraped from the brick and she could not stop. She did not try to. She had not cried like this since she was 24 years old. She had not let herself cry like this since she was 24 years old. She had been carrying it for a very long time. It was very heavy. She was very tired. She did not hear him come up. She felt his coat first. He put it around her shoulders, then his arms. He did not say anything. He did not tell her she had done a good job. He did not tell her it was over. He did not tell her she had saved a man's life, and that the man had a daughter, and the daughter had a husband, and the husband had children, and that the whole forward arc of a family had just been kept alive in a cafe in a neighborhood she had picked at random out of her own private penance. He did not say any of that. He just held her, with his coat around her, on a street corner. While she cried so hard she had to lean against him so her knees would stay under her. When she could talk, she said into his shirt, "I almost didn't go." "I know." "I almost didn't go, Nathan." "I know. You did, though." "I almost let him die." "You didn't. It was so close." "It wasn't close. You went." "I was right back there. In that truck. I was right back." "I know." "How?" "How what?" "How did you know what to say?" He thought about it. He still had not let go of her. The wind was cold. His coat was on her. He was in shirt sleeves. "Because I have a thing I do," he said. "When I look at her picture and I can't breathe, I have a thing I tell myself. I tell myself, you are not in that kitchen. You are not in that morning. You are here. You are with your son. The kitchen happened. The kitchen will always have happened, but you are not in it. I have been telling myself that for 2 years. I just used your version of it. I changed the words, that's all." She did not say anything. "You are not alone in this," he said again, quietly, just to her. "I meant that." "I know. I love you, Victoria." She pulled back, slowly. She looked at him. Her face was wet, her eyes were red. There was a smear of something on her cheek that might have been turkey gravy from when she had set the plates down, and there was a piece of her hair stuck to her mouth. And she looked, Nathan thought, the way Hannah used to look the morning of her recital, which was the most beautiful she ever looked, because it was the only time she ever forgot to be anything but herself. "You picked a hell of a moment to say that, Nathan." "I know. My nose is running." "I know. You are an idiot." "I know." She laughed. It was a wet, terrible, beautiful laugh. She pressed her forehead to his. "I love you too," she said. "You absolute idiot." They stood there. The wind moved. Somewhere down the block a horn went. Inside the cafe, 60 people were starting to eat again, slowly, with the strange tenderness people have for food after they have just watched somebody almost die. Caleb was sitting at the table by the door. He could see them through the window. He did not get up. He did not interrupt. He had decided, somewhere in the last 60 seconds, that this was the kind of moment grown-ups had to have by themselves. Donna saw him watching. Donna came over with a glass of milk and sat down next to him. She did not say anything either. She just sat with him, and the two of them looked out the window together, and the boy leaned his head against her arm without thinking about it. She put her arm around him without thinking about it either. Outside, in the cold, Victoria stayed with her forehead against Nathan's for a long time. The streetlight buzzed, the wind moved. Eventually she lifted her head. She wiped her face with the back of her wrist. She looked up at him. "I have to go to the hospital," she said. "I want to check on Walter." "Okay. Come with me." "Get the kid." "Get the kid." They went back inside. The cafe was warm and loud again. The Thanksgiving playlist was back on, lower than before. Caleb came over to them at the door and looked up at Victoria, and he did not ask anything, and she crouched down in front of him the way she had crouched down 11 months earlier on a coffee-stained floor. "Hi, bud." You okay?" He nodded. "You did so good in there," she said. "You stayed in your chair. You stayed with Auntie Ellie. You were so brave. You saved that man. Lots of people saved that man. You were the main one." She did not argue. She just looked at him for a moment. Then she put her hand on the side of his small face and she said very quietly, "Thank you for letting me." He did not entirely understand what she meant. He nodded anyway. He had been nodding at grown-ups for almost 7 years now, with the polite tolerance of a small judge, and he had decided long ago that they sometimes said things that did not need to be understood right away. They left the cafe together. Donna stood at the door and watched them go. The three of them walked down the block in the cold, the man and the woman with the boy between them, and Donna closed the door behind them and turned back to the room and said, to nobody in particular, "All right, who needs more gravy?" 60 people raised their hands. Walter was discharged the next morning. The hospital kept him overnight for observation because his daughter had insisted, and because Eleanor, on her way out of the cafe, had made a phone call to a friend on the ward and told her, in the diplomatic way Eleanor had perfected, that the man on the way in was important and that she would consider it a personal favor if he got the slightly bigger room. He got the slightly bigger room. Victoria sat with him for the first 2 hours. She left only when Marta told her, firmly, that Marta was sleeping in the chair next to her father tonight and that Victoria was going home to her own family. And Victoria did not correct the language because by then she had stopped correcting that kind of language about 3 months earlier. The story made the local paper on Saturday. A small piece, page 4, 2 columns, with a photograph of Donna outside Marlowe's holding a Thanksgiving turkey and looking exhausted. The reporter, a kid from the neighborhood weekly named Sam, had wanted to interview Victoria. Donna had told him no. Donna had told him that the lady in question did not give interviews and that if he wanted a quote, he could have one from her. And the quote she had given him was, "A neighbor saved a neighbor. That's what neighborhoods are for. Quote me on that, don't quote her." He had quoted her. The piece did not name Victoria. Sam was a good reporter and a better neighbor. He called her a customer who had emergency medical training. Marco Ramirez taped the article to the corkboard in the office in the Bronx anyway, and circled the line about the customer, and wrote in the margin, in his all-caps engineer's hand, "She's back." She was back. Through December, she trained twice a week. Through January, she added a third day. By the end of February, the Daniel Reyes Initiative had certified its second cohort of civilian responders, and one of them, a barista named Luis, who worked at a coffee shop 3 blocks from a daycare, had used what he learned to keep a 2-year-old breathing in his lobby for the 8 minutes it took for the ambulance to get there. The kid lived. Luis had cried in Marco's office for 40 minutes the following week. Victoria had sat in the corner and let him cry and had not said anything, because she remembered being the person crying after. And she remembered that the kindest thing anyone could do was let it happen without explaining it to her. She moved out of the penthouse on the 42nd floor in March. She did not move into Nathan's apartment. They had talked about that. They had decided, both of them, that they were not the kind of people who rushed at things. Nathan had been alone for 3 years with a 6-year-old who had been a 4-year-old when his mother died, and Caleb's bedroom was the only room in their lives that had not been moved or rearranged or repainted in any of those years, and she was not going to be the person who came in and changed the geography on the boy. She told Nathan this on a Tuesday night in February, sitting on the floor of the penthouse with a glass of wine, and he had not said anything for a long time. Then he had said, "I love you for thinking of that. You weren't going to ask me to move in. I was going to ask you eventually, and I was going to say no eventually." Right. So we save ourselves the conversation. Right. She bought a smaller apartment 4 blocks from the café. 2 bedrooms, 2nd floor of a brownstone, a kitchen with a window that opened onto a fire escape. The 2nd bedroom was for Caleb, for nights when he wanted to come over, which had been happening more and more. She painted it herself, on a weekend, with the boy sitting in the doorway in an old t-shirt with a roller in his hand that he was not actually allowed to use yet. He had picked the color. It was a green that the paint store called Frog Pond, which was not, in fact, the color of any pond Victoria had ever seen, but it was the color of every drawing of a pond Caleb had ever made, and that was the color the room had to be. She kept the penthouse for another month, and then she sold it. The money went into the initiative, which by then had a real name and a real budget and was being asked by the city to put a training program into all of the public libraries in the Bronx. She kept her father's company. She did not give it up. She had thought about it briefly in February, the way a person thinks about cutting all their hair off after a bad year. Philip had talked her out of it. He had not talked her out of it by making the business case. He had talked her out of it by saying, in his slow, careful voice, "You are not the same person who took this job, Victoria. The job will be a different job now. Try it for a year." So she tried it for a year. She did less travel. She canceled 3 boards she had been on for the wrong reasons. She put a vice president in charge of the day-to-day. She started leaving the office at 5:30. Once, Miriam had walked into her office at 5:35 and Victoria had been gone, and Miriam had stood in the empty office for a full minute looking at the empty chair before she had laughed out loud, because she had worked for Victoria Hale for 5 years and had never once seen the chair empty before 7. The first time Caleb called her V was an accident. It was a Wednesday in April. He had been doing homework at her kitchen table. He had needed a pencil. He had looked up and said, "V, do you have a pencil?" And then he had stopped, both hands flat on his worksheet, and his face had gone through about 4 different colors in 2 seconds. She had been at the stove. She had turned around. "Yeah, bud, in the drawer by the toaster." He did not move. He was looking at her like he had broken something. "Caleb, I didn't mean—" "It's fine. I meant to say your name. You can call me whatever you want. Dad said—" "Whatever Dad said is fine. You can call me whatever you want. V is good. I like V. Get the pencil." He got the pencil. He did not look at her for 10 minutes. Then he came over to her at the stove and stood next to her and said, very quietly, "V, the pencil's broken." She handed him the small sharpener she had bought for exactly this reason, and that was the end of the name. Nathan asked her to marry him on a Sunday afternoon in May. He did not do it the right way. He did not have a ring. He had been holding her hand on the couch and watching Caleb build something out of Lego on the rug, and he had said without preamble, "I want to marry you." She had not looked at him. "That's not how you do that." "I know." "You don't have a ring." "I know." "You haven't even asked Caleb." "I asked him this morning." "You did?" "He said yes. He had some terms." "What were his terms?" "V gets to keep her apartment. He likes it. The frog pond room. He says he wants both." "That's reasonable." "He also said he doesn't want me to call you anything weird in front of his friends." "What does he consider weird?" "Honey, sweetheart, babe." "He has a point." "I told him I would consider it." "What was his other term?" "He wants a dog." She turned and looked at him. Nathan was looking at the ceiling. He was trying very hard not to laugh. "He wants a dog," she said. "He wants a dog. He says if there are going to be 3 of us, there should be 4 of us. He thinks that's a fair number." "And you agreed?" "I told him a dog is a separate negotiation." "Smart." "Vic." "Yeah." "Will you marry me?" "You haven't even gotten off the couch." "I know." She thought about it. She did not have to think about it. She thought about it anyway, because she was a person who thought about things, and because the boy on the rug had built a small Lego house that he was now trying to put a Lego dog in front of, with great seriousness, on a Sunday afternoon in May. "Yes," she said. "Yes." "Yes, Nathan. Of course yes. You absolute idiot." He laughed. He pulled her against him. Caleb looked up from the rug and saw them and did not look surprised. "Did she say yes?" he asked. She said yes. "Okay." He went back to his Lego. They got married in October at the café. It was Donna's idea. Donna had said, in March, when she found out, that nobody was going to spend a stupid amount of money on a wedding venue while she had a building with a chalkboard menu and 28 chairs sitting right here. She had said it the way Donna said all things, like it was already decided and they were welcome to argue with her if they wanted to waste their time. They had not argued. The cafe was closed to the public that Saturday. Donna and Marcus and Priya spent the morning rearranging the tables. Eleanor brought flowers from a market on Bleecker, and she had picked them herself, which she announced repeatedly throughout the day so that anybody who tried to compliment them would know who to compliment. Caleb wore a small gray suit Victoria had bought him that he had inspected with the slow consideration of a small judge and approved. He had been given the job of carrying the rings. He had practiced for 2 weeks. He took the job very seriously. Marco walked her down the aisle, which was the 4 steps between the door and the front counter. He had not asked. She had asked him. He had cried in his office for a long time after she had asked him, with the door closed, so that nobody would see, and then he had walked out the office door an hour later and said, "Yeah, fine, all right," and gone home. He wore a suit that did not quite fit him. He had not bought a new suit in 11 years. He refused to buy one now. The suit was fine. Nathan, who was standing next to the wobbly table by the window with both hands in his pockets because he did not know what to do with them, would say later that Marco had walked her down the aisle with the kind of pride that should have been illegal in a public place. She was not in white. She had not been 23 the first time, and she was not going to pretend to be 23 now. She was in a long, deep gray dress that Eleanor had picked out and that Donna had hemmed. She had her hair down. She had no jewelry. She had Caleb's ring in her palm because she had insisted that she carry it for him until the moment came, in case he dropped it. The ceremony was 8 minutes long. The officiant was a woman named Pat, who lived in the apartment above Marlowe's and had been ordained online in 2009 for her cousin's wedding and had been waiting to do another one ever since. Pat did not cry. Pat had been a paralegal for 35 years and had decided long ago that crying was for amateurs. Nathan said his vows from a piece of paper he had folded 8 times. He had to unfold it. He took a long time. He read it the way he read Caleb's storybooks, slowly, without trying to sound like a person on a stage. Victoria, I had stopped looking for this. I want you to know that. I had stopped on purpose. I had made a decision that whatever I had had with Hannah was the thing I had been given, and that I was not allowed to ask for anything more, and that anything more would be greedy. I want you to know that I was wrong about that. I was wrong about that the night you knelt on the floor of this cafe and told my son a story about a dragon. I've been wrong about it every day since. There is no fixed amount of love a person is allowed. I know that now. Caleb knows it. He has known it longer than I have. He told me, the morning I asked him about you, that he had a lot of love left over and that he didn't know what to do with it, and that you having some of it would help. He's 6. He's smarter than I am. He's 7, Caleb said from the front row. The cafe laughed. He's 7, Nathan said. He turned 7 in March. I'm not going to live this down. The point is, Victoria, I love you. I'm going to keep loving you. I'm going to be bad at it sometimes. I'm going to forget things. I am going to be tired when I shouldn't be tired, and quiet when I shouldn't be quiet. I am going to need you to tell me when I am doing it. I will try to do the same for you. We are not going to be smooth about this. We are not going to be a movie. But I am going to be here. I will be here. I will be here in 20 years. I will be here when your hair is gray. I will be here when my back goes out, which the doctor says is in about 3 years. I will be here. That's it. That's the whole thing. He folded the paper back up. He looked at her. Victoria did not read from anything. She had written something. It was in her pocket. She had decided 10 minutes before walking in that she was not going to read it. Nathan, she said. Yeah. You know the night we met. I remember it. I was going to leave after 15 minutes. I know. I had a car waiting at the corner. I had told my driver to keep the engine on. I was going to text my sister at 7:35 and say I had food poisoning and walk out. Did you really? I really did. I had the text written. I had the symptoms picked out. I was going to go home and watch a documentary about a museum heist. How did the documentary end? I never watched it. I never went home that night. I went to a hospital. I went home around 4 in the morning. I left the documentary on the screen. It was paused. It was still paused 2 days later when I finally turned the television off. I never finished it. Nathan, I am never going to finish it. That's the only thing I want to say. Whatever was happening in that documentary, whatever the heist was, whoever stole whatever painting from whatever museum, that life is paused. There is a life I was watching that paused that night, and it has stayed paused. And the life I have been in since then is this one. The one with the broken table. The one with the bell that does not work right. The one with Donna and Marco and Eleanor and you and our son. And I have been afraid every day since the moment I sat down at that table that I was going to wake up one morning and the documentary would be playing again. That somehow the screen would turn itself back on. That I would be back in that life, and this one would have been the thing I imagined. She paused. Her voice was very steady. It is not going to. I know that now. This is the life. The other one was the pause. I have spent a long time being afraid of getting this and losing it. I do not want to spend any more time being afraid. I want to be in it. I love you, Nathan. I love your son. I love the small, ridiculous apartment with the green room. I love Marlowe's. I love the wobbling table. I am going to make a vow to you that I have not made to anyone since I was 22. I am going to be present in my own life. That is the vow. I have been somewhere else for a long time. I am here now. I will stay here. That is what I am promising you. That is what I am promising your son. That is what I am promising myself. She did not cry. Nathan did. He was not embarrassed about it. Eleanor cried. Donna cried, which was a thing Donna had said she was not going to do, and which she would later blame on the candles. Marco cried very quietly, into a pocket square that had not been used since 1998. Pat the officiant did not cry. Pat would later tell Victoria, in private, that she had come close. Caleb came up between them with the rings on a small pillow Donna had made out of a kitchen towel. He held the pillow up with both hands. He had been practicing the part where he held it up. He had told Nathan, the night before, that the trick was to hold it high enough that the grown-ups did not have to bend. He held it high enough. Nathan put the ring on her finger. She put the ring on his. They kissed. It was a quick kiss, because Caleb was right there, and because there was time later for the other kind. The cafe made the kind of sound a cafe makes when 26 people who have been holding their breath let it out at the same time. Walter was in the front row. He had brought Marta. He had also brought, against medical advice, his own bottle of something he had been saving for 30 years. For a moment he did not believe was coming and which he was determined to use now, and he insisted on opening it himself with hands that were less steady than they had been the year before. And he poured a small amount into every glass in the cafe, including the orange juice glass that Caleb was drinking from, which Nathan let happen because he had seen the look on Walter's face when Walter had carried the bottle in that morning. They ate dinner sitting all together at the long table Donna had set up by pushing 6 small tables into one. Donna sat at one end. Eleanor sat at the other. Marco sat next to Victoria. Walter sat next to Marco. Caleb sat between his father and Victoria, in his small gray suit, with his tie crooked because it had gotten crooked sometime in the middle of the ceremony, and nobody had had the heart to fix it. After dinner, Donna stood up. She tapped her glass with a knife. She was holding her glass in a hand that was not very steady because Donna was 62 years old and had been on her feet since 5 that morning, and she did not give speeches, but she gave one now. "I'm going to keep this short," she said, "because if I don't, I'm going to say something I will regret later when I'm sober." The cafe laughed. "I have been running this place for 31 years. I have been doing the Thanksgiving for 22 of them. I have seen a lot of people walk through that door. Most of them I forget. Some of them I remember. A few of them," she paused, "a few of them I love. That's the truth. I have loved customers. I'm not embarrassed to say so. Walter, sit down. This is not about you. You are going to make me cry." Walter, who had been half standing to raise his glass, sat down. "I want to say something about love. I am 62 years old. I lost my husband when I was 38. I have been doing this alone for 24 years. I am not a person you would normally come to for advice about love, but I will tell you what I have learned because it is my cafe and you cannot stop me." "We cannot stop her," Eleanor said. "Thank you, Eleanor. I have learned that love is not the big thing. The big thing is not love. The big thing is the casserole. The big thing is who shows up on a Tuesday in February when nothing is happening. The big thing is who remembers that you don't like cilantro. The big thing is who notices when you are tired before you have noticed it yourself. Love is the small thing that you do every day for a long time. And one day you turn around and you realize that the small thing you have been doing every day has built a house, and you are living in the house, and you did not know you were building one. That is what love is. People think it is the part where you cry on a curb on Thanksgiving. That is not love. That is the proof of love. The love was already there. The love was Nathan walking in this cafe every Saturday at 2:35 for 6 months in a row because his kid asked him to. The love was Victoria canceling her stupid heritage lunch. The love was Caleb deciding, on his own, that he was going to call this woman V. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that one was the loudest love any of us have ever seen in our lives. The whole cafe knew about it before anyone told us. Caleb went red. Nathan put his arm around him. "I want to say one more thing, and then I'm going to sit down because my feet hurt. I want to say it to you, Victoria. I have known a lot of women in my life. I have known a lot of women who have been broken. I have been one of them. Most of us never get all the way back. That is the truth. Most of us walk around for the rest of our lives with a piece of us missing, and we get good at hiding the gap, and we tell ourselves that the gap is fine, and we go on. You were like that when you walked in here a year ago. I saw it. I see it in mirrors. You are not like that anymore. You came back. Not all the way. Nobody comes all the way back. But far enough. Far enough that the boy noticed. Far enough that the man noticed. far enough that an old waitress noticed and almost cried about it in her own cafe in front of 60 people on Thanksgiving. You came back. That is the whole speech, to Victoria and Nathan, and to that crooked little tie. Caleb's hand went to his tie. The cafe raised its glasses, even the orange juice one. Donna sat down. Donna did not cry. Donna would maintain for the rest of her life that she had not cried at that wedding. The video of the wedding, which Marcus took on his phone, very clearly showed her crying. She refused to watch it. The night went late. Walter went home at 9. Marco stayed until 10 and then took a cab back to Queens. Marta hugged Victoria for a long time at the door and did not say anything, and Victoria did not say anything back because the things they were not saying were too big for words, and they had both decided long ago to leave them where they were. Caleb fell asleep at the table around 10:30, with his head on Nathan's arm and the small, gray suit jacket folded under his cheek as a pillow. Nathan carried him out to the car at 11. Eleanor drove. Eleanor had not had any of the wine because Eleanor was working in the morning, and Eleanor was the kind of sister who decided to be the designated driver at her own brother's wedding and then did not let anyone forget it. Victoria stayed behind to help clean up. Donna told her not to. She did anyway. They worked in the quiet cafe together, the two of them, after the others had gone, putting chairs back where chairs went, wiping tables, sweeping. The Thanksgiving playlist was on again, low. The bell over the door was still. "You don't have to stay," Donna said. "I know. It's your wedding night. My husband is putting our son to bed. I have a few minutes." Donna paused with a chair in her hands. "Say that again." "What?" "What you just said." Victoria thought about it. She had not realized what she had said. "My husband," she said. "Our son." She had to put down the rag she was holding. She had to sit on one of the tables for a second. Donna came over and sat next to her, the chair forgotten. "Yeah," Donna said. "That one's going to get you a couple of times. The first 100 times, anyway. After that, it just feels like the truth." "Donna." "Yeah, sweetheart." "Thank you." "For what?" "For not changing the cookie." Donna looked at her sharply. "What?" "The cookie, Donna. The night I met him. The peanut butter cookie. You grabbed it off the wrong tray. You always said it was your fault. It was not your fault. It was the cookie. The cookie was a piece of bad luck. The cookie was the worst thing that has ever happened to me in this cafe, and the cookie was also the best thing that has ever happened to me in this cafe. And there is no way to separate those two things, and I have stopped trying to. So thank you for the cookie." Donna was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I never told you this. I checked with Marta. After Walter choked, I asked her what he had ordered. He had ordered the turkey plate with the cornbread. Nothing weird, nothing unusual. You know what was on his plate that was different than every other plate that day?" "What?" "Nothing. There was nothing different. He just happened to take a bigger bite than he should have, that's all. There was no cookie. There was no wrong tray. There was no waitress who grabbed off the wrong shelf. There was just a man and a piece of food and a wrong moment. And the only difference between Walter and the people who don't make it is that there was a woman 6 feet away who knew what to do. I have been doing this for 31 years, Victoria. People walk into cafes every day and have wrong moments. Most of them do not have a woman 6 feet away. You being there saved his life, not the training, the being there. The training is what made you useful, but being there is what made you matter. Do you understand what I am telling you?" "I'm not sure." "You don't have to forgive the cookie, sweetheart. I forgive the cookie. The cookie did its job. The cookie did the only thing it could do. It got you in the door." Victoria looked at the floor, the same floor she had knelt on a year and a half ago. "That's a lot to put on a cookie, Donna." "It is, but I think a cookie can take it." She laughed. It was a wet laugh, a tired laugh, the laugh of a woman who had been getting married all day and had forgotten she was allowed to be tired. Donna patted her hand. She got up. She went back to the chair she had been carrying. Victoria sat there for another minute on the wobbling table, looking around the cafe. The lights were low. The plates were stacked. The flowers Eleanor had picked out were starting to droop. There was a small pile of confetti by the door that Marcus had not gotten to yet. There was a single small gray jacket on the back of one of the chairs. Because Caleb had been so deeply asleep that nobody had thought to grab it on the way out, and Victoria realized she would have to remember to bring it home. Home. She turned the word over in her chest. Outside, snow was starting to come down. The first snow of the year. The forecast had said maybe. Nothing certain. Possible flurries after midnight. It was after midnight now. The flurries were here. They fell in the soft, careful way they had fallen the January she and Nathan had held hands on the wobbling table for the first time, and the way they had fallen on the Christmas Eve she had sat in the too small chair, and the way they had fallen on every important night of the last 2 years of her life. She got up. She got her coat. She hugged Donna at the door. She did not say anything else. There was nothing else to say. She walked the 4 blocks to her apartment, the one with the green room. She did not take a cab. She wanted the cold. Her feet hurt in the shoes she had been wearing all day, and she did not mind. The snow caught in her hair. 2 people passed her on the sidewalk and did not know who she was, and she liked that. She had spent a long time being a person other people knew. She liked being a person nobody knew. She liked being a woman walking home in a gray dress on a cold night with snow in her hair. She got to the brownstone. She went up the stairs. She let herself in. The lights were on low. Eleanor was on the couch, asleep with her shoes still on, because Eleanor had refused to leave until she knew the apartment was unlocked and the boy was in his bed. Caleb was in his bed. The frog pond room was dark except for the small nightlight that Nathan had made the boy promise he would still use until he was 8. He had 8 months to go. Nathan was sitting on the floor in the hallway outside the boy's room. His tie was off. His jacket was off. His shirt was untucked. He looked up when she came in, and he did not get up right away, and she did not make him. She sat down on the floor next to him. "Hi," she said. "Hi." "He's asleep." "He is." "He didn't even wake up when I took his shoes off." "He's exhausted. He had a big day." "He had a big day." She leaned her head against his shoulder. He put his arm around her. They sat there for a long time, in the hallway of the small apartment, with their son sleeping in the next room and her sister asleep on the couch, and the snow coming down on a city they shared. "Vic." "Yeah. Are you happy?" She thought about it. She thought about it the way she thought about everything, with care, because she did not want to give him a stupid answer. "I'm here," she said. "That's the bigger answer." "I know what you mean." "Are you happy?" "I'm here." They sat for another minute. "Hey," he said. "Yeah. Thank you for the dragon book." "What?" "That first Christmas. The hardcover one. With his name in pencil. He still reads it. He read it last week. He's read it about 100 times now. He told me yesterday that Otto and the dragon are getting married next." She laughed into his shoulder, the kind of laugh that came out before she could stop it. "Otto and the dragon are getting married." Apparently the dragon proposed. Did the dragon have a ring? "He says no. He says the dragon used a leaf." "That's better than what you did, you know." "I know. You had nothing." "I had nothing. You had less than a leaf." "I had less than a leaf." She lifted her head. She looked at him. His face was tired and lined and was the most familiar thing in her life. She thought about all the things she could have said in that moment. She thought about all the speeches that were waiting in the back of her chest, the ones she had not made at the wedding, the ones she would never make, the ones nobody but her would ever know about. She did not make any of them. She kissed him. On the floor of the hallway, with her sister on the couch and her son in the next room, and a piece of confetti from somewhere in her hair that she did not yet know was there. After a while, she said, against his mouth, "What do you think the lesson of all this is?" "You want a lesson now." "I'm asking." He thought about it. "I don't think there's a lesson," he said. "I think most of life doesn't have one. I think people who say things have a lesson are usually trying to sell you something. That's bleak. I'm not done. I think there isn't a lesson, but there's a thing." "What's the thing?" "The thing is that you don't get to pick when it happens. You just have to be in the room when it does. Hannah was the room. You were the room. The cookie was the room. The man who choked on a piece of turkey was the room. I almost wasn't in any of those rooms. I had stopped going into rooms. After Hannah, I had stopped. You had stopped. We were both not in rooms anymore. And then Eleanor pushed me into a room, and your sister pushed you into a room, and we showed up to the same room, and that's it. That's the thing. You have to keep going into rooms, even when you don't want to, even when you are pretty sure it's going to be terrible, even when you have a documentary paused at home. You have to go into the room. Because the only way you get this, he gestured at the dark hallway, at the closed door of his son's bedroom, at her, is by being in the room when it happens. She was quiet. That's pretty good, she said. Don't tell anybody. I save it for special occasions. I won't tell. He kissed the top of her head. She thought for a second about Daniel. She had been thinking about him more lately, not less. She had been afraid for years that letting Nathan in would make her forget him. It had not. It had done the opposite. The room in her chest where Daniel lived had gotten bigger as the rest of her had filled up, not smaller. There was more space for him now than there had been in any of the years she had spent shutting everything down. He took up more room when she was full than when she was empty. That was something she had not expected. She wished she could tell her 24-year-old self about it. She would have, if she could have. She would have sat down on the floor of that wrecked apartment 6 years ago and said, I know you don't believe me. I know nothing I say is going to land. I just want you to know that the way you are doing this is not going to work. You are going to have to learn to live with him in a different way. The way you are doing it now is going to take 6 years to undo. I am sorry. I love you. Go to sleep. Get up tomorrow. Eat something. Call your sister. Pet the dog. She did not say any of this. Her 24-year-old self could not hear her, but she said it to herself in her own head, on the floor of a hallway in a brownstone in the city she had grown up in, with her husband's arm around her and her son asleep in a green room. She thought about all the people she had become and all the people she would not become now. The cold one. The other one. The one who would have died, slowly, on a 42nd floor without ever knowing she was dying. She thought about how easy it would have been to be that woman forever. She thought about how close she had come. She thought about a flat, papery bell over a door. She thought, thank you, Cookie. The thought was so ridiculous she laughed out loud. Nathan looked down at her. What? Nothing. What? I'll tell you in the morning. Okay. He got to his feet. He pulled her up after him. They stood in the hallway for a second, holding hands, looking at the closed door of their son's room. You want to check on him? She said. Yeah. They opened the door, quietly. They looked in. Caleb was on his side, his face turned toward the nightlight, his mouth open a little, the way kids sleep when they have used all the energy a body can have in one day. Nathan went in and adjusted the blanket. Victoria stood in the doorway. The boy did not stir. She watched him breathe for a moment. The slow, deep, miraculous rhythm she had first heard in a hospital room in a different November. She remembered, then, that she had thought that night that she would never stop being grateful for the sound of a child breathing. She had been right. She had not stopped. She would not stop. She would carry the sound of him breathing for the rest of her life, and it would still, every time, feel like the first time. Nathan came back to the door. He turned off the nightlight switch, then turned it back on because that was the rule, then took her hand again. They closed the door behind them, softly. Bed, he said. Bed. They walked down the hallway. Eleanor, on the couch, snored a small, dignified snore. Outside the windows, the snow kept falling on the city. Somewhere across town, the lights of Marlowe's were off. Somewhere across town, Donna was sleeping in her apartment above the laundromat. Somewhere across town, Walter was alive, in his own bed, snoring next to a woman he had been married to for 51 years. Somewhere in Queens, Marco was awake, because Marco did not sleep, looking at curriculum drafts for the next cohort. Somewhere on a hillside in upstate New York, a man named Daniel was buried under a small headstone with his name and 2 dates, and a line his brother had picked that read, "He sang in the cab." And in a small apartment 4 blocks from a café with a bell that did not work right, a man and a woman who had not been looking for each other turned off the light in the hallway and went to bed. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, for the first time in a very long time, Victoria Hale slept without dreaming, and Nathan Brooks slept without checking the time. And a boy named Caleb slept in a green room with both of his parents in the apartment, the way every child should get to sleep at least once in a life. That is the story. There is no moral. Nathan was right. There is only the room. Go into the rooms.